Okay, good evening, everyone. At this time, I'd like to call to order the May 5th, 2026 regular meeting of the Kenai Peninsula Borough Assembly. This meeting is also being conducted through the Zoom meeting platform and can also be heard on KDLL 50 FM 91.9 and KBBI AM 890 and KIBH FM 91.7. If you all would please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. At this time, we will now receive an invocation offered by Central Emergency Services Chaplain Frank Alioto. Frank, thanks for being here. You may either remain standing or be seated. No one is required to participate.
Thank you. Let us pray. God, we thank you for this opportunity to gather together on this evening. We thank you for the men and women who are not only representing the people of our community, but serving for the greater good. Thank you that in your word you talk about a light of a city on a hill that shines. And I pray that the decisions that are made and the light that is shared would be reflective of good things, not just for individuals, but for the whole community. And thank you for their service tonight. Thank you for the people that will be sharing. We pray that this would be an honor to each other and to the greater good of our community. In your name I pray. Amen.
Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
President Tunzett.
Here.
Vice President Cooper.
Here.
Mr. Dunn.
Here.
Miss Eklund.
Here.
Mr. Eicher.
Here.
Mr. Griebel.
Here.
Mr. Hicks.
Here.
Ms. Neeson.
Here.
Mr. Truesdale.
Here.
You have a quorum, Mr. President.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So the Assembly's had a fairly busy day today. We started out our morning with a tour of the new Central Emergency Services Fire Station in Soldotna. That was at 10:30 this morning. That was really cool to see this beautiful brand new building that was built, and appreciate John Hedges leading that tour for us, and Chief Browning as well. Looks like a beautiful space for those guys to be able to use for many years to come, and so it's a good asset for our community. That was a great tour. And then we jumped into our committee of the whole, which included our budget work session. So started off with our IT department. Ben Hansen gave us a update on his budget, and then our legal department, Sean Kelly, gave an update for that. And then we jumped into the Kenai Peninsula Hospital Service Area, the South Peninsula Hospital Service Area, the Soldotna Rec Service Area, and then the Kenai Peninsula College Post-Secondary Education Fund. Updates on all those budgets. And so pretty busy from about 10:30 on, and then that brought us to our normal committee meetings. And so we started finance at 2:15, and we'll just go from there. So at this time, I'll be looking for committee reports. We'll start with finance with the finance chair, Assemblymember Neeson.
Thank you, President Tunzett. The Finance Committee actually convened at 2:22. We were a little bit delayed. We reviewed one item that was up for a public hearing. That was Ordinance 2026-14, an ordinance authorizing communications site lease agreement with GCI Communications Corp. in Beluga. It was sponsored by the mayor and is eligible for the consent agenda. This is a 5-year lease with renewal options negotiated with GCI for 1,600 square feet of borough-owned land in Beluga for a communications tower and equipment shelter that's been in place actually since 2015. Since the 2020 expiration of the original land use permit, GCI has been paying about $673 per month for holdover tenancy. The new lease rate is set at $2,000 per month with a 3% annual increase, plus a portion of any rents from sublets. The borough also retains the right to use the space on the tower for borough needs. Under new business, we had a resolution 2026-025, a resolution determining the amount to be provided from local sources for school purposes during fiscal year 2027 and approving the Kenai Peninsula Borough School District total budget, sponsored by the mayor and eligible for the consent agenda. This resolution approves the district's total budget for fiscal year 2027's budget and confirms the local contribution amount of $62,359,080 as requested by Kenai Peninsula Borough School District. So it confirms the local contribution amount, and this is additional funding beyond the 2.5% sustainable budget curve that the mayor's been advocating, recognizing their difficult decisions that they've made lately and reducing spending. It does meet last year's funding, which was the fiscal year 2026 cap. We did receive a lay-down motion to amend the resolution, so I expect it to be pulled from the consent agenda. So we'll be coming back to that one. Ordinances for introduction, we had 4, all eligible for the consent agenda. 2026-19, an ordinance appropriating funds for fiscal year 2027, sponsored by the mayor. Hearings are on May 19 and June 2. This appropriates $111,238,439, which is the amount necessary to fund the borough for fiscal year 2027. Director Harbaugh gave a very thorough explanation of the budget and the mill rate implications. And of this total budget, it's noteworthy that 67% of it is education funding, which includes the local contribution, the capital outlay, and the debt service. Ordinance 2025-19-38, an ordinance appropriating $31,460,051.15 in educational bond proceeds for the purpose of financing certain educational capital improvements in the borough. It's sponsored by the mayor. The hearing will be on May 19. This goes back to 2022 when borough voters authorized general obligation funds not to exceed $65,550,000 for educational capital improvements. The borough elected to issue the debt in 2 phases. So the first phase was issued in 2023, in January of 2023. And this is the remaining amount, which is $31,460,051.15 for the second phase, and they were received on April 14. So this ordinance appropriates those proceeds to finance educational capital improvements in the borough. Ordinance 2026-22, an ordinance authorizing communications site lease agreement with Vertical Bridge S3 Assets, LLC in Kenai. This is sponsored by the mayor. The hearing's on May 19. This is for continued lease of the Wildwood Tower site, a communication tower that's been in place since 1980, I believe originally to Chevron. The lease is now with Vertical Bridge, and it expired on November 1, 2024, but they've been allowed to have holdover tenancy since then. The new agreement is a 5-year lease with 4 5-year renewal options at $4,000 per month with 3% annual increases. In addition to rent, the borough receives a portion of rental income of any sublets and will retain the right to use the tower for borough needs again. The Planning Commission is to hold a public hearing on this on May 11 at its meeting and will forward its recommendation to the borough. The next item was 2025-19-39, an ordinance appropriating funds from the North Peninsula Recreation Service Area Operating Fund for heater replacements at the North Peninsula Community Recreation Center, sponsored by the mayor. The hearing is on 5/19. The Nikiski Community Rec Center's heating units are 30 years old, at least, and are failing. This is $600,000 that allows for the purchase and install of new heating units before next winter. The Rec Service Area Board approved the project, but this is still under evaluation, and they may come in lower if the units can be rebuilt. That's being assessed right now. The final item was KPB 7658, authorizing the issuance of a letter of non-objection to the Alcohol Beverage Control Board regarding the renewal of Jimmy Jack Fishing Inc. Liquor license number 60427 outside the Kenai city limits. This is a license for a recreational outdoor lodge called Jimmy Jack's Fishing Lodge, located on Reef Drive near Exchange Way in the California ski area. Administration had no objection based on unpaid taxes or location proximity to schools or churches. That was our final item. The Finance Committee adjourned at 3:38 p.m. This concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Neeson. Our next committee is the Lands Committee. That's chaired by Assembly Member Cindy Eklund. Ms. Eklund.
Thank you, President Tunseth. We started our meeting at 4 p.m. today. We have 3 ordinances that are up for public hearing and 2 new business items. The first one was Ordinance 2026-16, authorizing the conveyance of 5 parcels of KPB-owned land to the City of Homer for less than fair market value in support of a city need, brought to us by the Mayor, Vice President Cooper, and Assemblymember Dunn. It is eligible for consent. It was approved by the advisory board, and the updates are included in the ordinance. This is part of the Kachemak sponge, which those of you in the Homer area recognize, and anybody that's worked on the Planning Commission also. It was originally in 2021 10 properties owned by the borough, and over the years we are down to 5 left that we are going to provide to Homer as part of their water management systems. They are purchasing it with a NOAA grant, and it has to remain in city ownership. The borough is going to retain 1 parcel on the northeast corner of that sponge. The second item is Ordinance 2026-17, reauthorizing the conveyance of KPB-owned land to the State of Alaska Department of Transportation and Public Facilities for a public highway right-of-way in support of the Sterling Safety Corridor improvements, milepost 82.5 to 94, and this was brought to us by the Mayor. This sliver of land was conveyed to the State Department of Transportation in the past, and it just never was finalized. The borough obtained the property through tax foreclosure in 1989, so we're just now going to finalize it, and they're going to use it for hopefully help with frontage roads and driveway congestion. And the advisory board recommendations were updated in the ordinance as well. The last ordinance is Ordinance 2026-18, authorizing the lease of borough-owned land for a material site in Beluga by competitive lease offering through sealed bid procedures, brought to us by the Mayor. The advisory board recommendations are also in the ordinance. This is the second of these material site leases that we are hoping to provide to the public. It will be done by competitive sealed bid that is to be delivered to the Land Management Office by May 21st. It's a 24-acre parcel, $450. The material site is in Beluga. You have to remove a minimum of 1,000 yards a year and a maximum of 200,000 a year. See Aaron Hughes in Land Management if you have questions. The new business items are KPB 7659. This is a long one. Petition to vacate a portion of the varied width Stake Avenue and associated 10-foot utility easements in Lot 30 HM 2001-80 lying within the following limits. The projection of Oil Well Road as dedicated in HM 2001-80 and the seismograph right-of-way known as Gravel Pit Trail along the northern boundary of Track 107 and the intersection with Prosser Street right-of-way to the east as dedicated by Ninilchik right-of-way map, Plat HM 84-115, and identified on the submitted sketch as the Ninilchik area. This was brought to us by the Mayor and had unanimous approval at the April 13th, 26 Planning Commission. This would make a property owner have continuous parcels. He owns 4 of them, and it would also provide a safer helicopter landing for Central Emergency Services. The last item on my agenda is KPB 7660, petition to vacate the western approximately 274.4-foot portion of the north 30-foot of Augusta National Road east of the intersection of Grant Avenue, including the adjacent 15-foot utility easement. Adjacent to the parcel created by Plat Waiver 96-17 and Lot 4A, Block 3, South Bend Bluff Estates, Plat KN 2002-42, as dedicated by Plat KN 2002-42 in the Chichansky Road area, brought to us by the mayor. It was also unanimously approved at the April 13th, 26th Planning Commission meeting. There was no specific reason given for this request by the applicant, but a couple of people from the public spoke at the Planning Commission in favor of this. This is at the CES and Roads Board. The Central Emergency Services and Road Boards still need to give their opinion, approval, or disapproval of this vacation as of yet. And we ended our meeting at 4:14. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Eklund. Our final committee is our Policies and Procedures Committee. That's chaired by Assembly Member Truesdale. Mr. Truesdale.
Thank you, President Tunseth. Today, the Policies and Procedures Committee met at 4:30. We had the mayor's report, which you'll hear tonight in the meeting. We had 3 resolutions under new business. Resolution 2026-026, approving a new collective bargaining agreement. That resolution, the Kenai Peninsula Borough and their employees, Kenai Peninsula Employees Association, have negotiated a new 3-year collective bargaining agreement through 2029. Overall, the agreement focuses on improving clarity, strengthening communication, and provides wage increase. The union membership has already approved it. Resolution 2026-027, approving a standardization policy for the use of NeoGov. This is seeking Assembly approval to standardize NeoGov as the Kenai Peninsula Borough's Human Resources Information System provider for 5 years under the borough's proprietary procurement rules. NeoGov is essential to daily borough operations. Using non-integrated systems would be more costly than continuing with NeoGov. Resolution 2026-028, authorizing the mayor to execute the 5th Amendment to the operating agreement with CPGH, Inc. This resolution authorizes the mayor to sign the 5th Amendment to the operating agreement with CPGH, Inc. It updates the agreement to clarify processes and expand leasing capacity. Finally, we had a couple things. We did have an ordinance for introduction. Ordinance 2026-21, amending Borough Code KPB 2.45.050, adopting the revised Kenai Peninsula Borough Emergency Operating Plan and providing for periodic updates. This is the next iteration of the Kenai Peninsula Borough's Emergency Operations Plan and amending code to allow for ongoing updates with mayoral approval. The revised plan replaces the 2020 version. It was developed with input from stakeholders, and key changes include shifting from a narrative format to task-based checklists covering preparedness, response, damage assessment, recovery, and grant management. Finally, we had KPB-7661 confirming an appointment to Resilience and Security Advisory Commission. The mayor has asked that we approve applicant Jonathan Crocker, that large seat that expires in September 30th of 2028. The Policies and Procedures Committee adjourned at 4:47.
Thank you, Assemblymember Truesdale. Vice President Cooper.
I move to approve the agenda and the consent agenda.
Thank you, Vice President Cooper. We have a motion to approve the agenda and consent agenda. Are there any amendments to the agenda and consent agenda? Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ordinances 2026-14, 2026-16, 2026-17, and 2026-18 were all updated to include the advisory board recommendations. This is pursuant to KPB 2240-050F. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Assemblymember Neeson.
I move to add ordinance 2026-14 to the consent agenda and ask for unanimous.
Okay, ordinance 2026-14 has been requested unanimous for adding to the consent agenda. Are there any objections? Okay, seeing none, it's been added. Are there any additional amendments to the agenda and consent agenda? Assemblymember Eklund.
Thank you, President Tunseth. I move to add ordinances 2026-16, 2026-17, 2026-18 to the consent agenda and ask for unanimous.
Okay, unanimous has been requested to add 3 ordinances, 2026-16, ordinance 2026-17, ordinance 2026-18. Unanimous has been requested. Are there any objections? Okay, seeing none, those have been added. Ms. Eklund.
Thank you, and I would like to remove Resolution 2026-025, determining the amount to be provided from local sources for school purposes during fiscal year 2027, and approving the Kenai Peninsula Borough School District total budget from the consent agenda.
Okay, it's been removed. Are there any additional amendments to the agenda and consent agenda? Okay. Madam Clerk, could you please read the consent agenda?
April 21st, 2026, regular assembly meeting minutes. Ordinance 2026-14, authorizing a communications site lease agreement with GCI Communication Corp. In Beluga, sponsored by the mayor. Ordinance 2026-16, authorizing the conveyance of 5 parcels of KPB-owned land to the city of Homer for less than fair market value in support of a city need, sponsored by the mayor, Vice President Cooper, and Assemblymember Dunn. Ordinance 2026-17, reauthorizing the conveyance of KPB-owned land to State of Alaska Department of Transportation and Public Facilities for a public highway right-of-way in support of the Sterling Safety Corridor Improvements Milepost 82.5 to 94 project, sponsored by the mayor. Ordinance 2026-18, authorizing the lease of borough-owned land for material site in Beluga by competitive lease offering through sealed bid procedures, sponsored by the mayor. Resolution 2026-026, approving a new collective bargaining agreement, sponsored by the mayor. Resolution 2026-027, approving a standardization policy for the use of NeoGov, sponsored by the mayor. Resolution 2026-028, authorizing the mayor to execute the Fifth Amendment to the operating agreement with CPGH Inc., sponsored by the mayor. Ordinance 2026-19, appropriating funds for the fiscal year 2027, sponsored by the mayor, hearings on May 19th and June 2nd. Ordinance 2025-1938, appropriating $31,460,051.15 in educational bond proceeds for the purpose of financing certain educational capital improvements in the borough, sponsored by the mayor, hearing on May 19th. Ordinance 2026-22, authorizing a communications site lease agreement with Vertical Bridge S3 Assets LLC in Kenai, sponsored by the mayor, hearing on May 19th. Ordinance 2025-1939, appropriating funds from the North Peninsula Recreation Service Area Operating Fund for heater replacements at the North Peninsula Community Recreation Center, sponsored by the mayor, hearing on May 19th. Ordinance 2026-21, amending Borough Code, KPB 245050, adopting the revised Kenai Peninsula Borough Emergency Operations Plan and providing for periodic updates, sponsored by the mayor, hearing on June 2nd. KPB 7658, authorizing the issuance of a letter of non-objection to the Alcohol Beverage Control Board regarding the new outdoor recreation lodge liquor license, Jimmy Jack Fishing, Inc., license number 60427, located outside city limits, of Kenai city limits, KPB 7659, petition to vacate a portion of the varied width Steak Avenue and associated 10-foot utility easements in Lot 30 HM 2001-80, lying within the following limits: the projection of Oil Well Road as dedicated in HM 2001-80, and the seismograph right-of-way known as Gravel Pit Trail along the northern boundary of Tract 107, and the intersection with Prosser Street right-of-way to the east as dedicated by Nanilchik right-of-way map, Plat HM 84115, and identified on the submitted sketch, located in the Nanilchik area. KPB 7660, petition to vacate the western approximately 274.4 feet portion of the north 30-foot of Augusta National Road east of the intersection of Grant Avenue, including the adjacent 15-foot utility easement adjacent to the parcel created by Plat Waiver and Lot 4A, Block 3, South Bend Bluff Estates, as dedicated by Plat KN 2002-42 in the Sachansky area. KPB 7661, confirming an appointment to the Resilience and Security Advisory Commission. Applicant Jonathan Crocker, the at-large seat, for a term to expire September 30th, 2028. That is the consent agenda.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Okay, at this time, we'll take public comment on any of the items that are on the consent agenda. Just remind each speaker that you have 3 minutes. Please hit the button so that the red light comes on. State your name clearly for the record, and which city that you live in. Is there anyone at this time that's signed up for public comment on the items on the consent agenda?
I do not have anyone signed up.
Okay, is there anyone in the public that wishes to give comment on any of the items on the consent agenda? Okay, is there anyone on Zoom?
I do not see any hands raised.
Okay, so at this time we will close public comment on items on the consent agenda. Vice President Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request, pardon me, unanimous approval to approve the agenda and consent agenda as amended.
Thank you, Vice President Cooper. Okay, unanimous request for approval of the agenda and consent agenda has been requested. Are there any objections? Okay, seeing none, the motion to approve the agenda and consent agenda as amended passes. So that brings us to presentations with prior notice. Tonight we have two, both of our hospitals. The first one will be the Central Peninsula General Hospital quarterly report, and then the second one will be our South Peninsula Hospital quarterly report. For the South Peninsula, we're joined by Ryan Smith, CEO, and then for Central, we're joined by Angela Hennigan, Chief Executive Officer. So, Angela, you're up first. Thank you for joining us, and you'll have 10 minutes for the presentation. Again, make sure the red light comes on, and the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, President Tunseth and Borough Assembly members and Mayor Michicki. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. We have a little bit of an upgrade on our slides you'll see from previous slides, so I want to thank Bruce Richards, our Government Affairs Office, and his team for zhuzhing these up for us. They look a lot better. I also want to introduce to you Cammie Patterson, here in the middle row. She's our new Chief Financial Officer. She joined us in January, and we're really excited to have her. Madam Clerk, if we could go to slide 1, please. Thank you. I want to just kind of talk you through these since these are new slides you haven't seen before. The graphs might be a little bit confusing at first. On the left side, we have our net patient revenue. Actually, on the left side, we have our fiscal year 26 year-to-date combination of our net patient revenue and gross. At the top, you can see we have earned 585, or at least we've charged gross charges of $585 million so far year-to-date in FY26. That orange bar underneath it is what we've written off, so that's what we don't collect, $380 million, which left us in the current fiscal year with $204 million. On the right-hand side, you'll see the same results for FY25. Our gross patient revenues, these are our gross charges, $544 million. Write-offs last year were $340 million, and then net patient revenue, $204 million. So you can see here, almost year over year, no change in the net patient revenue. So that means that we're writing off a lot more this year than we did in the previous years. In fact, although we charged about $40 million more this year than last year, we basically wrote all of that off. Our next slide. So here you'll see our net operating expenses and also our non-operating. The majority of that is that blue bar, that's our operating expenses. So year over year, on the left side is FY26, the right side is FY25. You can see that we have had an increase in our operating expenses, but a decrease in our net patient service revenue. Before we get to the next slide, though, I want to tell you a little bit about that. Our operating expenses have increased about 5.5%. Part of that is contract labor. A lot of that is salaries. Right now, about 70% of our operating expenses is salaries. At the bottom, you can see a really tiny orange bar, and that is a combination of our plant replacement and expansion earnings. So investment earnings on plant replacement funds that are invested here at the Borough, less our bond interest that comes out of that. Our next slide. So here we have both our operating income on the left-hand side. We have our net income on the right-hand side. The operating income is simply our net patient revenue minus our operating expenses. So as I mentioned earlier, we basically have the same net patient service revenue year over year despite an increase in operating costs. And what that's done is we now have an operating loss of about $5.4 million year to date compared to the same period last year when we had a $5.7 million gain. On the right-hand side, you can see our net income. So this is after you add in the plant replacement and expansion fund investment earnings and subtract out the bond interest. So overall, our net income for the year as of March is currently a loss of $1.1 million. Compared to last year at the same time, we had a $9 million net income. Next slide. So this is another big part of the story and why we are collecting less. Part of it is our normal payers, Medicare, Medicaid, commercial payers, but we've also seen a really large increase in our uncompensated care. And that's made up of two things. It's made up of financial assistance, which is on the left, and bad debt on the right. That blue bar is the fiscal year 26, and then the orange bar is fiscal year 25. If you add both of those together, you get our net uncompensated care. For 2026, total uncompensated care so far year to date is $21 million compared to $18 million the same time last year. So that's about a 17% increase in uncompensated care year over year, which is pretty huge, $3 million. The story there, however, is it's not financial assistance, it's actually bad debt. And what we're seeing is 19% more uninsured patients in our accounts receivable right now, and 13% more uninsured patient charges year over year. So pretty significant. That means patients are falling off of insurance for whatever reason. Our next slide. So here's our trend. You can see it in terms of dollars. Now we've annualized this because we only have numbers through March, but where we expect to end at the end of this year is about 28 million, and that's about 5 million more than where we were last year. On the next slide, you can see this as a percentage of gross revenue. And so you can kind of see that jump up from 3.1 to 3.6 is where we expect to be at the end of the year. And again, we have all sorts of beliefs as to why this is increasing so fast, but we do know part of it is the ACA marketplace subsidies that went away. And so a lot of people did lose their coverage. Our next slide. So a little bit about our community benefits program. You can see the websites on our network. We have both the community benefits program brochure, and you can also see whether or not you are eligible for a discount. So check those two websites out. And again, 21 million is what our total uncompensated care is so far year to date. So next slide is our cash and cash equivalents. There's a pretty large jump here, but you can see that there's not a large jump in the number of days cash on hand, and what that is a year-over-year increase in operating expenses. So it costs more to operate the hospital than it did last year. Right now, a day of operations is $734,000. Last year, it was $678,000. I do want to point out that in the March 31st numbers, we did actually get a $4 million check from Noridian. That's our Medicare financial intermediary, and it's a settlement payment that actually was a mistake. So we're just holding on to it until we send it back to them. After we get that back to them, we'll have about 82 days. So these are somewhat inflated. Our next slide. We haven't actually made any transfers to the plant replacement and expansion fund in at least a year. So that balance right now is $81.4 million, and that continues to grow because it is earning investment income. So again, right now, 87.4 days cash on hand, but after we return that $4 million to Noridian, we'll be at about 82. Our next slide, I want to introduce to you some new additions to our medical staff. Coming in November, we have Dr. Bryce Bunn. He's a general surgeon. He's finishing up a bariatric fellowship right now, which is pretty exciting. That's not currently a service line that we offer at the hospital, but he's also a general surgeon, so he'll do many of the things our current general surgeons do. In the middle, Dr. Jan Irvin already is working out of the hospital. He is an independent contractor. He has his own company, and he is doing pain procedures. And then this month, we have invited Dr. Dan Wenzel, and I apologize, we don't have a picture of him. But Dr. Wenzel is joining us from Arizona, and he'll be doing a lot of the pain procedures at the hospital as well. On the right-hand side, this is our latest hire, and his name is Dr. Brock Davis. He'll be doing dermatology and Mohs surgery, and if you don't know what Mohs surgery is, that's removal of skin cancer. So we're excited to have him join us in September. And there on the right, you can see some of the service lines that we're currently recruiting for, but we haven't got any contracts signed for yet, but we are looking. So some community updates on our next slide. I just wanted to brag on the Soldotna Field House for a minute and how amazing that is. If you look on the Friends of Soldotna Field House recently on their Facebook page, you can see that they are averaging 130 seniors a day walking in that track. So that is amazing. We're really proud of that program that we're supporting. These are the overall numbers, a number of walking sessions, new registered seniors, and then total registered seniors to date. So it's a pretty exciting program. On our next slide, you can see that we have a new issue of the Pulse out. So check that out. It is on our Facebook page if you didn't get one in the mail. You can see a little bio and introduction to our behavioral health director, Angie Delgado, a little bit more about the behavioral health services that we provide. There's also some highlights about our internal medicine residency program that's at Central Peninsula Internal Medicine, and a little bit about Dr. Jan Urban and the Urban Pain Institute. And our last slide today is something coming up on Saturday. We probably should have renamed this to the Parent and Babies Fair. It is still called the Women and Babies Fair. There will be discounted on-site labs, but I want you to know it's for men too. So it's not just for women. We also have on-site mammography and incentives, tours of the Family Birthing Center, and lots of fun giveaways and booths. So please join us on Saturday if you can from 9 to 1. And I would like to open it up for questions if anyone has any.
Thank you for the presentation, Ms. Hennigan. It looks like we do have a few questions. We'll start with Vice President Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thanks for your presentation. When we talk about the uncompensated care and knowing that that was going to happen with the Affordable Care Act, what are you seeing with Medicaid? Any changes and or delays from processing through the state, or people that aren't qualifying or being able to get renewed?
Yeah. Medicaid is still changing. When they went through their large re-enrollment just after COVID, we did see some people drop off of Medicaid. We're not seeing huge numbers. I think we're seeing about a 1% drop. Looking at my CFO right now, I think we're seeing about a 1% drop in Medicaid enrollment. What we're really worried about is December 31st, when the new Qualified Activities Rule goes into place from HR 1. So we're definitely worried about that. We're working with the state right now. They don't have the rules. They don't know yet how they're going to administer that program. I think it's going to be a 30-day look back. So we're definitely worried about our Medicaid population popping on and popping off and popping on and popping off Medicaid insurance. So that's pretty worrisome. We are going to work with the state to see if somehow they can send us someone from Medicaid and embed them in our organization so that we can just bring patients over to their office and give them all the help that we can give them to get them enrolled.
Assembly Member Neeson.
Thank you. On the uncompensated care, you may have answered this along the way, but maybe I wasn't clear on it. You said that it was not including people who were financially unable to pay, but in essence, it would be people who didn't pay. So how long do you hold those bad debts before you write them off is the first question, and then the second one is, does that include people who pay a partial and then just can't pay the rest and they negotiate the rest off?
Great questions. It's actually both. So our uncompensated care is a combination of financial assistance, so those who don't have the ability to pay, and bad debt. Bad debt doesn't necessarily mean they don't have the ability to pay, but they haven't interacted with our financial counselors, and so it's unknown. So if we can reach out to people and get them to apply for financial assistance, we want them on that track. Bad debt happens when there's no interaction, or there's reason to believe that there is the ability to pay, but no payment happens. As to the time frame for write-offs, I don't know that on top of my head. I'm gonna again phone a friend. Do you happen to know? And we do have a policy for like when we write that off. I can't recite it off the top of my head, but there is a number of statements that they get, a number of phone calls that they get. But I can definitely bring that back to you if you're interested.
Thank you. I'd love to hear it at some point. but
Okay,
No pressure.
we
Thank
got you. Yeah, great question.
Okay, I've got an easy one. I think I forget what the amount of days is that's required for cash on hand, but if you drop below that, then do you pull back from the pref? Is that how that works?
There's not a minimum number of days, but you're right. If we do get to an uncomfortable place with operating cash, we do have the ability to come to you and ask for some of that money from plant replacement back to supplant our operations. We recently had this conversation, like, what would that number be? And it's up to our comfort level. But basically, having 87 days cash on hand, that means if not a dollar came in for any service we provided, we could still meet payroll and all of our operating expenses for 87 days. But again, there's 18 sitting in plant replacement and expansion that we could kind of call that back into operations if we needed it.
All right, thank you. Not seeing any other questions, so again, thank you for. Oh, I'm sorry, Mayor.
I'm sorry, Mr. President.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
Few questions. How are we doing on the Kenai mammograph? I think it's called a mammograph. And second one is on the uncompensated and charity care. You talked about seeing an increase in people sort of dropping off of having available insurance or other ability to pay. Are we doing an exit plan to try to understand like what the trends are locally, maybe here and in Homer? It's a question for both. Just trying to understand what exactly is happening. It may not just all be regulatory changes. Just a question.
That's a great question. I'll start with the mammography machine. So you may know that our Central Peninsula Health Foundation was able to raise about half of the money to purchase a new mammography machine so that we could move our existing mammography machine, which is getting a lot of utilization in our main hospital, over to Kenai so we can have that service for our Kenai population, and purchase a new machine that actually has a bone densitometry unit attached to it, and place that here in Soldotna where it's going to get a lot of use. That purchase order has been signed. It is not here yet, so we're just waiting for that to arrive, and there'll be a little bit of a shuffle replacing that machine and then moving the other machine to Kenai. So I don't have the date, but I'll update you all when we get it. Your second question for individuals that are dropping off into uninsured status. I don't know that we have a mechanism for identifying the why, although I would say our financial counselors probably know more than I do. I would only have to ask them. The numbers that I'm getting, though, from MODA, who is the ACA Marketplace State of Alaska insurance company, they told us, interestingly enough, that about 260 Central Peninsula community residents dropped off the ACA Marketplace last year. So that happened in 2025 before the subsidies even went away. Haven't looked at the numbers yet for January, but I know that they'll have them for us. So it is interesting that it happened even before the subsidies went away. Why? I don't have a good idea as to why.
Brief follow-up. 275 is a number. What does that mean proportionally? Is that significant?
I believe, help me with this one, Bruce, there were 1,300 or 1,200? 1,300 beneficiaries that had subsidies, and about 260 dropped off last year. Yeah.
Assemblymember Neeson.
Did MODA have any information on whether those people might have gone into Medicaid or Medicare from their marketplace?
If they did, I apologize. I did not get that nailed down in my brain, but I'll get some more information on that.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, make sure I'm not missing any. I think that's the last questions we had. So again, Ms. Hennigan, thank you for being here, and thank you for giving the presentation.
You're
Appreciate
welcome.
it. Okay, next up is CEO Ryan Smith, the Chief Executive Officer of South Peninsula Hospital. Again, you'll have 10 minutes, and the floor is yours.
President Tunseth, Mayor Machiki, members of the Assembly, thanks for the opportunity to present tonight. Madam Clerk, I'm at your mercy because I don't have my slides in front of me. So there we go. Great, thank you. All right, the first slide I always put up here, not this one, but the next one is the ownership and governance chart for the hospital. I recognize that this varies a little bit from the one on the back wall there, mostly because we circle the stages of grief and go back to denial that Angela's actually gone. So we keep her on the poster in the back of the room on our team. So anyway, thank you for the opportunity to operate South Peninsula Hospital on behalf of the borough that owns the assets. I don't think there's been any major changes to the ownership and governance since the last time I was here. All right, next slide. Again, Angela talked about gross patient revenue, and our slides have not been judged up, but I'm going to send them to Bruce and see if he'll do that for the next meeting. So these are our gross patient revenues for the year to date. So we're at about $221 million, about a 12% increase over the prior year. And if you annualize this out, we'll finish right around $300 million this year. Big brother up the road will finish probably around $800 million. So you all own hospitals that generate about $1.1 billion in revenue this year. So congratulations. Okay, the next slide. With that gross revenue, we generated about $8.8 million in net income compared to $8 million last year. We have that block in there, which is the April, we call this the employee retention credit revenue. So during COVID, you all know that we applied for paycheck protection money for our employees. We were under 500 employees, and we received some funds during COVID. We recently learned that or maybe a year ago, we learned that we were also able to apply for some of the payroll tax money. So we got salaries and wages back. We did not get the payroll taxes on those monies. And so we worked with a group called Sagemont Advisors and refiled our 941s to the IRS and learned in March that we were going to receive a net amount of $6 million back. And so that money did come. It came in checks, actually with Angela's name on them, but we did not send them to her. So we posted those, and so when the income statement for April, that $6 million will show up in there. So still planning to be on target for the end of the year. All right, next slide. Again, our charity care and bad debt amounts to about $6 million a year compared to $5 million last year. I think you already heard some of the information, relative to the subsidies going away or not going. Yeah, the subsidies going away and the number of patients signing up on the exchange. Again, probably some pretty similar numbers to Central for us. We did get some information from the state about the number of people who are enrolled prior to the subsidies going away and after the subsidies going away. Some of the stuff you don't get is like how many then selected bronze plans where they're going to have higher deductibles going forward. And so that's information still kind of shaken out for all of us. But all right, next slide. Our days cash on hand very similar. Central about 87 days. That employee retention credit is will be about 15 days. So we represented that in March there also. We clearly don't have the amount of funds in the plant replacement expansion as Central does, but we're hovering in there about 87 days. We do have some cash that's tied up in accounts receivable right now since our Epic conversion. We probably have saying $30 million in gross and about $15 million in net revenue that we do expect our days in accounts receivable hopefully to come down, and we'll be able to convert that money into days cash on hand. And if we can do that, then we can put some money back into the plant replacement expansion fund. So still working through some of that delayed receivable from the Epic transition. Next slide. One of the things that we have been doing since the bond failed is really working on a community plan to connect with our community. So our board did get together after the bond failed, and we still talked about what are the things that we can do without the bond passing. We can continue to update our infrastructure at the hospital, which we've been doing, been working with John Hedges, thanks John, on some of the congressional discretionary funds we got from Murkowski to replace the generators at the hospital. So we're in the midst of doing that. Again, the maximize section, we do want to still work to complete the certificate of need project that we got approved for by the state and relocate our infusion and pharmacy services into the shelled space of the hospital. So we have a couple different funding mechanisms we're working on Again, maybe some additional money from the congressional discretionary funds through Murkowski. We did submit through the Rural Health Transformation Funds to help us fund that. So we're going to continue to work on that. We want to continue to grow and acquire real estate in the medical district in Homer. So again, thanks to Aaron Hughes and the mayor for helping us identify properties where we can do that and potentially have, which is our last topic there, consolidate into a medical office building because we have a real inefficient delivery system of physician services in Homer at this point in time. So a couple more slides relative to this. If you go to the next one, again, updating that critical infrastructure. The biggest piece of that are the generators. I think I've mentioned here before, had some generators that failed for about an hour and 40 minutes back a December ago. And so we've been working to correct those issues and then also replace the generators. So that project has been bid out, and we're working on a plan to purchase the new generators. The other one I wanted to comment on in the next slide is again that maximizing. So we do have that 11,000 square foot lower level there in the hospital, and we do want to continue to work towards putting our infusion center and pharmacy in there, even without the bond project. I think it's a really important project. Yeah, we continue to grow that service, and would like to relocate it there. All right, the next slide. Okay, so we've done some community conversations. We've been 2 in Homer, 1 in Anchor Point. We've been to the Rotary a couple times, Chamber of Commerce. We did the Women of Action, the Ketchmack Board of Realtors. A lot of community presentations, just asking our community, since the bond did not pass, things that we should be working on. We're going to continue to grow our local healthcare specialists. There's some concerns about prices and affordability of healthcare on a national level, state level, and local level. We've been working on some options for urgent care to open an urgent care in June of this year in the family care clinic building at our hospital. So we will have an option to the emergency room 6 days a week, 12 hours a day. Again, we're still working on the concerns about buildings, buying buildings, who owns the buildings, what are the values of those buildings, so that we can work towards consolidating some of our services that we're delivering inefficiently now. We got some great appreciation for care. We did work. There was some concern about having out-of-area members potentially being on our board of directors, and so our board did work to change the bylaws to not allow out-of-area members on the board as a result of some of the feedback we got. We're working on some prompt pay discount stuff for balances owing after insurance, similar to what Central does in our area based on the feedback we received at some of these. So really trying to listen to the community and address some of those concerns. Next slide is and part of doing that is at the bottom provider there, Kara Zimmerman, is a PA that's joining us in the urgent care. Carrie Warren is a PA that we currently have, and then Dr. Ingalls is going to be the medical director of that urgent care, and we're going to open that service line here in June. We've also been working to recruit ENT physician to the Peninsula, so Fred Freeman will be joining us in May, and Teresa Thompson will be a nurse practitioner coming with him. We've been working with Jim and Diana Zerl on potentially leasing some space with them in their building and employing Dr. Zerl on a per diem basis so that we can work collaboratively to bring ENT to the Peninsula while Central continues to recruit for their ENT. And when they have one, then we'll back out of this area. But worked with Angela, with Dr. Zerl, and we're going to try to work collaboratively in bringing that service here. Okay, next slide. The Rural Health Transformation, you all know about this, about $272 million per year for 5 years. The next slide shows the letters of interest that we submitted on March 11th. I think sometime soon, middle of this month, we'll know whether we did or didn't, whether we were successful with any of these letters of interest we submitted. There's $273 million. I think there was 1,800 applications for $2.2 billion. So there's $2 billion of stuff that's not going to get funded, and hopefully some of our items will make the cut. All right, next, I think I have a couple more. One, we do have a new website. It went live today, so if you want to go check out our new South Peninsula Hospital website. Thanks to Dorotha and her crew for putting that together. It actually looks great. And finally, hospital will be turning 70. This is a hospital that was built in 1956. The service area was formed in 1969. So 70 years later, we'll be celebrating our anniversary in July this year. We'll get you the exact dates and times when we have them. So we're excited for that. I think that's all that I have. Yeah, I think there are like 3 seconds left. I think Angela left 30 on the table. So anyway, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Well done. It looks like we have a few. We'll start with Vice President Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you very much, Mr. Smith, for coming. When we talk about, I have two on the healthcare transformation funding. I always worry when we have money like that that is put out there and you know, it can't replace existing funding, can't use it for new construction. And so we're enthused because we have needs that aren't met. Then when that funding goes away, I worry about sustainability. And so as everyone is planning for these dollars to help, how are we planning for the part after that funding goes away so it's sustainable?
Yeah. You may be worried, but I'm probably more worried than you're worried. So one of the criteria that the Alaska Community Foundation will be scoring these letters of interest and applications on is sustainability, that you can put these things in place and then sustain them after. So it will be part of the criteria they use to judge these letters of interest and projects that will be coming before them. But yeah, I think, you know, we're all worried about, you know, the ability to do that. So we're doing our best to lobby for being able to use these for actual capital projects that will be able to be sustained after that. So this first year, maybe not so much, but we're going to keep lobbying so that we can have new construction and things that will be sustainable in our communities going forward.
And then the follow-up is something near and dear to my heart is the demonstration project with MODA and the state of Alaska. I see that that's part of your interest letter. Has there been any progress on that? Do we still have interest at the state level on wanting to participate?
Yeah, I think we have a lot more interest now because they have some money. So Angela and Anna, myself, a group have been working. MODA actually wrote the letter of interest for that one on our behalf. And so they've had conversations with Heidi Hedberg, with the state. I think there is a lot of interest. And now, you know, the problem for the last 12 years when Rick and Sean and everybody's working on this is the state just couldn't find a way, I think, to get out of their own way with their IT systems and everything else. And now that they have the potential to fund some of that stuff, I think they're very interested in having a demonstration project to prove that we can provide a better service to Medicaid beneficiaries, and we'll be able to test it out here on the peninsula.
And that would be mandatory instead of voluntary, correct, for that population?
Yeah, I think there's a portion of the population that it would not be mandatory for. But yes, the idea with that, it would be mandatory. I think there's like 16,000 beneficiaries and 12,000 non-native beneficiaries would be mandatory and the others would not.
Okay, are there any additional questions? Okay, I'm just going to make a quick comment. I just again wanted to thank you for the tour when we were down there. It really just kind of seeing these presentations and all the things that you guys are working towards, that more than anything kind of brings that to life and gives you an idea of what you're actually looking at and what the changes need to be made. And so, again, just really appreciate that. It gave me a really good understanding of what's going on, and that was super valuable. So just want to thank you for that. Thank you for your presentation. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Willie? No.
Okay, excellent. So at this time, we'll take public comments. These will be for items not appearing on the agenda. I'll just remind speakers that they have 3 minutes. We'll have an aggregate of 20 minutes for public comment, and also just remind people, make sure you hit the button so that the red light and the microphone comes on. State your name and the city that you're from. So we'll start with Madam Clerk. Is there anyone signed up?
No, sir.
Nobody signed up. Okay. Is there anyone in the room wishing to give public comment? Okay. Nobody in the room. Is there anyone on Zoom?
I'm not seeing any hands raised.
Okay. So at this time, we'll close public comment for items that are not appearing on the agenda. As a reminder, there is a second opportunity in our agenda for public comment as well. So brings us to the mayor's report. Mayor Machicki.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to start out this report. I spoke at the 2026 West Coast Pilot Conference, which is a group that brings in everything that matters to us and hauls it back out again, whether it's oil or goods, fruits and vegetables from the lower 48, a lot of container traffic. Very interesting. It was Washington, Oregon, California, Hawaii, BC, and Alaska. So I sat through most of it. It was just very interesting to see what kind of challenges they have. I'm president of the Cook Inlet Harbor Safety Committee. You probably don't even know what that is. It's a Coast Guard organization. And that interaction was interesting, just hearing again. And what I figured out while I was there is you can save the borough parking dollars. It's cheaper to get a parking ticket than it is to park in the garage all day long. So it's just something for you to think about. The only difference is if you don't get a parking ticket, then the borough will pay for parking in the garage. But if you do get one, then you need to pay for it yourself. But it's $20 for a parking ticket, or you can spend all day. Anyway, just do the math. It actually kind of works. We've had a lot of pool discussions. I think some communities are getting pretty close. I don't know if I gave a report last time, but I think most pools have interested parties. The math works on cost avoidance for the district. The math doesn't work when there's other math involved, but I think we have a lot of interest, and I'll just kind of list the ones that I think look pretty good, and that's Homer, Seward, Kenai, Skyview, and we talked about Soldovia's pilot project with their extra funding on their mill rate. So we'll keep you posted. Dana's been working hard on that. We're meeting with Soldotna tomorrow. And what we're going to do is package it all up, present it to the school district, and they can make a decision if they want to go for a year with cost avoidance. And we get a better idea of what these organizations are capable of raising that would be more focused on fundraising to keep the pools open. Pretty small numbers, pretty doable in most cases, a couple of challenges. Anyway. I know everyone's interested in the pools, that our community, no matter what one person said at a meeting, 62,000 people bought these pools. Yeah, we got some grant funding through the years. A lot of it was bond dollars, but they've been paying for the maintenance and upkeep of them all these years. They're their pools. This is their building. I hate to see them go unused, and I compare a pool to a boat. It's not the 3 months in the water that does the damage, it's the 9 months they're out of the water. So I'll keep you posted on that. We'll keep you posted. Thank you, Dana, for all your hard work on that. District has been supportive of our plan so far, and we'll see if that can come together. A lot of AGDC Glenfarn meetings. That is important. Don't know if you're following it or not. We have the lowest mill rate of any 4356 property. We also currently have the ability to determine our own taxes for under Title 29 for our shore-based facilities. We're on the other end of production, so we tax our own Marathon facility, and LNG facility, and Agrium, Nutrien, and we have the right under Title 29 to tax this one. We're not a greedy group. We'd like, if there's a feasible project coming forward, we want to support that, but it has to cover our costs. And I hope you are supportive of my logic and philosophy there. It's been a little bit of a battle. I think those meetings have been going better lately, and I'll keep you posted on that. But I hope that the legislature continues to be careful and gather information. It's not, there's not really many in the legislature with that kind of background. And large mistake could be one that affects our kids and grandkids and the price of natural gas for decades. So I remain available to have discussions, advise a little bit on kind of what reality looks like, and we'll keep you posted. Land sale went really well. I spoke before the land sale because I saw some things on Facebook. Like you, I get all of my accurate information on Facebook. So what I saw on Facebook is sort of the suggestion that the borough kind of rubs our hands together on these foreclosure land sales. They're expensive. We don't make any money. We just want to process the land through. Most of the proceeds go back to the families that previously owned the land. So this one, $643,000. I want to thank Land Management. If I forget any, please let me know. Finance, Dana and Joe in my office. Legal, assessing. Everybody worked together. Great outcome. Great day. I'm glad we did it outside from the back of a truck. It was just seemed more legitimate. We started off in here, but I don't know, 250 people showed up? 300? You can tell me the number. It's okay. Yeah, 300 showed up. Everything sold. Some at very good prices, we hope. Previous owners do well. A lot of those properties are in estates that have just been forgotten about and things like that. So we just want people to know it's our job to process that property so we don't become a land bank for everything that ever comes back, get it back out in the community. Hopefully someone turns it into their forever home. Let's see, I'll skip the boring stuff. I have lots of meetings all the time. I try to just do the highlights. Congratulations, Eric Ogren. He retired. We had a party for him on Wednesday. That was kind of cool. He was our enforcement guy. I have been scheduled twice for legislative task force testimony on the impacts to local governments and that relationship with a very broken foundation formula. They're very interested. People have learned a lot. They've learned a lot about the bill on the 5%. It's now a 3 to 10% tax cap, voluntary. Was heard for the first time in Senate Finance. Like to get that out of the Senate and over to the House and get that across the finish line. It's so funny how long it takes for people to understand what that means to education funding. But they do. They're getting there, and I hope to get that done. That is a big deal you saw the slides during the finance presentation that Brandy gave. The local contribution will continue to dramatically increase while the state share dramatically decreases without a better solution. That's just a stopgap. Hopefully it leads to a rewrite of the foundation funding formula, which creates the BSA. Retirement party for Marie Pafer from assessing last week. Lori Lingefeld, Thursday the 30th, both are the same day. Two long-time, dedicated, amazing employees that we're going to miss very much. Great people taking their place, but we have a lot of talent here that we'd like to keep forever, and eventually they're going to move off into the sunset, so we wish them the best. I'll announce them as we have these retirements or people move on to other adventures. And then I had a great meeting on Friday with Trade Minister Yoko Kamikawa. With her was Dr. Tsunami, Sunami. It made it easy to remember. And then the Japan consul here in Alaska, Kiyohiko Hamada. Meet Treadwell and Frank Richards. We were talking about the project and our relationship with Japan, which is 70 years old. Direct trade from Alaska to Japan. Earlier than that, but just talking about kind of since statehood. Fish, LNG, other products. Great relationship, and it was really great to have the foreign minister here for a visit. With that, I'm Gonna wrap it up. Today, met with the security team. Secretary McMahon is going to be here from the Trump administration this week. It is the GOP state convention. Friday night is a gubernatorial debate that I will have the honor of moderating. It's open to the community if people choose to come, and we'd love to see you there. And I don't want to steal the thunder from the Seward rep, but I watched exercise in grassroots over yesterday, last few months, working together on bylaws for the Bear Creek Community Council. Had an amazing turnout for their vote last night, passing the bylaws and the 7 members that will be on the council, and I'm really excited to begin working with them. I think that was kind of cool to watch. So looking for great things to bring that community together and kind of a more unified voice for us. That's it for my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate the detailed report. Obviously very busy, a lot of meetings, and still very accessible to all of us. I appreciate that. Are there any questions for the mayor? Wow, all right, that's how good it was. Seeing that.
Mr. President, at some point I'd like to walk members through the possibilities of the Phase 2 Glenfarn AGDC project. Probably do a couple at a time so they can ask detailed questions, or perhaps executive session. But I do think it's time that you'll read things, and things you read are not always accurate. We are a very conservative, industry-supportive borough, but our goal is a balance, and I don't think we can do any less than a balance that protects our taxpayers from subsidize something that should be beneficial. So I will talk to you, and we can see the best way to have that communication. Thank you.
Yeah, excellent. I appreciate that. I think that's a great idea. I was kind of thinking the exact same thing. Obviously, you've seen there was, the House proposal moving away from the 2% model to a throughput model, and so lots of questions I'm sure all of us have, but that sounds like a great idea. Let's work together, and we'll set that up. Okay, so at this time, we're just going to take a short recess. Let's meet back in 5 minutes, so we'll come back. Well, let's just give it 7. We'll come back at 7:20, so we'll give it 7 minutes here. So we'll be in brief recess until 7:20. Okay, let's call the meeting back to order. The time is 7:20. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that brings us all the way to Resolution 2026-25, which was pulled from the consent agenda. This is determining the amount to be provided from local sources for school purposes during fiscal year 2027 and approving the Kenai Peninsula Borough School District total budget. This was brought to us by the mayor and referred to the Finance Committee. So at this time, I'd be looking for a motion to adopt. Assemblymember Neeson.
I move to adopt Resolution 2026-025.
Thank you, Assemblymember Neeson. So we have a motion to adopt, and so at this time we'll take public hearing on Resolution 2026-025. Madam Clerk, is there anyone signed up that wishes to do a public hearing on 2026-025?
Yes, sir. Jason Torianen.
All right. School Board President Jason Torianen, thanks for joining us. You'll have 3 minutes.
So there it is. There we go. I see everybody up here like wondering where to push, and I tell them from my end, and it's the opposite. So I figured it out quick. Appreciate you guys. I made Peter laugh. That was my goal tonight. Appreciate you guys hearing this and listening to what we asked for this. I know this is a big ask. And it does bring us up to the funding from last year, which was funding to the cap, which is really what it should be now. But the way the state has handled this and the way the foundation formula is affecting it, it really puts the local taxpayer, our local government, in a tough spot. And we've had to make some really hard decisions. I know that you guys recognize that with the decision you're making here tonight. It was really, really hard. And I was just thinking, you guys don't have near as many people in your meetings as we do. Why is that? I'm just trying to figure, are you not as fun? Or I don't know what's going on here, but we don't give cookies out. They just come in hordes. So we'll have to figure something out for that and send some people your way next time. So I'll send you half next time. I'll just clear my room and say, half you guys, you got to get under the 126, and the rest of you come tomorrow to the, just kidding. Anyways, I really just want to appreciate what's going on. I appreciate the mayor working with us. We had several meetings with him on things we need to try to do. We're making some real tough decisions with that. At this point, I'm not asking for anything beyond what is the commitment that we've asked for from you guys. That may be something, at this point, the work is to go to the state and hopefully get them to fix these issues, especially with the foundation formula. I appreciate the mayor working tirelessly on this issue. I will continue to advocate with the people that I do, and I know several of you also do that. And I would really appreciate you continuing to work with our local legislators and other people you may have contact with to try to fix this foundation formula, because dumping this on the local taxpayer is not fair. It just isn't. Honestly, I think the whole thing is unfair. It's unfair that some places in our state pay nothing and other places have to pay a big chunk. And other boroughs have fought against that, and it hasn't gone anywhere up until now. But this should be the wake-up call, and I hope that you guys unite with other boroughs and really push back and try to get this fixed, because I think that would be the best thing for all of us, be the best thing for the district, be the best thing for the borough, and for the assembly, and for the taxpayers here. And it's just not fair that some people pay nothing and other people are required to pay a portion of this. It should be more equitable in the state. So I thank you for bringing this up. I do believe this is something that you guys are going to plan on moving forward with. It was on your consent agenda. That means you were consenting, I think, as a majority. So hopefully we can get this through right here, right now, and this is what we're asking for. If things fall apart from the state, that may change, and I know that you guys are willing to work with that, but I think we're going to get somewhere, and this is a good start, this floor right now. I think that's where we need to be. And I'm out of time. You guys are really gracious. Thanks. Are you going to kick me out, or can I keep going?
I'd let you keep going if you have more to say, Mr. Torian, and you
All right.
serve an important role, and we appreciate it. So if there's more, certainly go right ahead.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. Madam Clerk, is there anyone else that signed up?
Heather Fernstrom.
Okay, could you say the last name again? Fernstrom. Okay, Ms. Fernstrom, you'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. My name is Heather Fernstrom, and I actually grew up here. I went to Soldotna Elementary, Soldotna Middle School, and Soldotna High School. And I've spent many years away from this community, but I've recently moved back with a family of my own. And my 2 children attend school here in Soldotna. I have a 3rd grader and a kindergartner, and they have such incredible teachers. And I feel deep gratitude for the work that the teachers in this district do day after day, year after year. And I'm heartbroken by the decision to close 2 of our community's neighborhood schools, Tustamina and Sterling Elementary. The reality we now face is that we have made it much more difficult for hundreds of our students in our community to physically get to school. And we know that's just one barrier of many when you have to change schools. These are human lives that are impacted, not just a number moved from one column to another on a spreadsheet. And apparently this decision of closing our schools has already been decided. And although I'm sad to say the repercussions of that decision will continue to be felt for months, years, and decades ahead. But I'm here today to urge you to vote in support of an amendment to this resolution 2026-25 to fund our schools to the maximum allowable cap. Honorable Assembly members, this is your opportunity to show this community what you stand for and value. And I'm fully aware that the formula for school funding is broken at the state level. And I encourage everyone in this room and anyone listening on the air to continue to advocate to state representatives to make changes to the BSA, the Base Student Allocation Formula. The state must contribute more. I could not agree more. But what do we do now in this moment? Do we say to our children, everyone else is failing you, so we will too? Or do we step in and give everything that we can? What can we control in this moment? We can control our local contribution, and it speaks volumes. There's a choice being presented to you here today, and I urge you to make the choice that demonstrates that this community values and prioritizes education, children, and our future. Thank you for your time, your service, and your commitment to this community. Please make your vote count.
Thank you, Ms. Fernstrom. Is there anyone else signed up that wishes to give public testimony? Who's next?
Thank you. I have Braden Barber on Zoom.
Mr. Braden Barber on Zoom, you'll have 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm Braden Barber, and I'm a resident of Soldotna and a freshman student attending River City Academy. Students at River City Academy need a safe place to attend school. I felt more confident being at the school, and is what made me present to the public, speak, and fight for my school. To start, Kenai Peninsula Borough School District has projected 4 schools to be in all 3 scenarios. Regarding the $8.6 million deficit, River City Academy was among those 4 schools for an estimate savings of $323,856 by choosing to close the school to balance the budget. An attempt parents made is communicating with the KPB assistant superintendent about a grant they have found, though refusal occurred due to RCA being in all 3 scenarios in the budget. The school board continuing to not reopen the schools or provide attempts to keep the school open can create more distrust with the school board. Many board members during these school closure talks have said numerous times these students are numbers on a spreadsheet, though their arguments said otherwise for the closure of RCA. April 6, a board member commented on the school closure of RCA and said the school was much needed in our district, then later said it's a number issue and wanted to balance the budget. The pupil-teacher ratio is a major reason why smaller schools in KPBSD are struggling, including RCA, as district office has removed teachers from the school, not allowing future teachers for hiring, and limited to part-time positions. This can frame the school board to be starting a potential systematic injustice with both schools and teachers, as many union members on May 4th school board meeting has wanted their wages to have a 2% increase to match with the current inflation prices. Board member of District 5 challenged any testimonies numerous people had and said, whatever decision we're making now, roll forward. This statement from the board member is completely dismissing the public thoughts and ideas and framing more of an elitist approach. RCA only accounts to very little to the KPBSD budget deficit and one of the most inexpensive schools on the list to close schools. It won't really save the district as much money as they expect. That wraps up my testimony. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barber. Madam Clerk, is there anyone else signed up? Who's next?
I have Aaron Pierce, also on Zoom.
Okay, Mr. Pierce, you'll have 3 minutes.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Oh, Mrs. Pierce, I'm sorry. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good evening. My name is Dr. Aaron Pierce, and I'm from Bear Creek. I'm here tonight to urge this body to fully fund education to the cap so that our public school students are given the opportunity they deserve. What we're seeing right now in our schools is deeply concerning. Study halls are placed into core subject classrooms, and not as a matter of enrichment, but as a symptom of the lack of funding. We're facing the potential loss of library aides, those individuals who are essential to keeping our libraries organized, functional, and accessible to students. Without them, these spaces cease to be centers of learning, and they essentially become rooms with just filled books. Classes are being dissolved, people are losing their jobs, and with each reduction, we are narrowing the scope of opportunity available to the students of the borough. Let me be clear, I completely understand that this is not solely a borough issue. The challenges we face are shaped in part by decisions at the state level. However, while we cannot currently control the actions of the state, we are fully responsible for the choices we make here in the borough. And with that said, we can make a difference in our future by going to the polls this fall. But for now, we can't predict the future outcomes at the state level, just as we can't rely on them. But we can decide today what kind of community we want to be and what kind of community we want to show others that we are. And right now, the students are caught in the middle of these decisions, and they're the ones paying the price. They should not have to suffer because of policymakers in Juneau. Our students are not bargaining chips. Their education should not be collateral damage. If we continue down this path, families will make difficult but predictable choices. They're going to leave. They will seek out communities where their children have access to robust programs, supported classrooms, and fully functioning schools. And when they leave, we all lose. Funding education to the cap is not an abstract policy decision. It is a statement of values. And it says that we prioritize our children, our teachers, and our future. I urge you to act and vote accordingly. Thank you so much for your dedication to our peninsula.
Thank you for your testimony, Dr. Pierce. Madam Clerk, is there additional testimony signed up?
Next, I have Winter Marshall Allen, also on Zoom.
Okay, thank you. Winter Marshall Allen, you're up. You'll have 3 minutes.
Good evening. Thank you so much. My name is Winter Marshall Allen. I'm a special education teacher here in Homer, Alaska, a homeowner and a small business owner as well. I really appreciate the amendment. I really appreciate the initiative that has been taken forward to reconsider what has been offered. I do appreciate the collaboration that has come together in order for the 62.3 that is being offered, that has been confirmed by the mayor, although the amendment would be a huge help in regards to meeting the hole that we have right now still, and the $500,000 loss in student support services, which would be a continued decrease of ESP access to students and collaborative planning time, which can then become a legal issue with regards to our IEPs. The $100,000 loss in medical services, which returns into a reduction in nurses that we have in our buildings. We already have some nurses that are itinerant across 4 and 5 buildings in our regions. You guys are all representative of different districts. You understand how vast that can be. How many more of those positions that are jobs would be lost that then become individuals who fall off of the medical report that I heard because they no longer have insurance, which means that they would be then applying for subsidies that they may not be able to maintain and meet those bills because we all have medical issues that come up because we're human. Funding to the cap is a value statement. Our budget last year, listening to the finance committee, was 67% of the budget. In Homer, we had a surplus of mill rate, and so our mill rate was reduced. There was testimony of people being willing to give back their $25,000 that was an addition for the $75,000 property tax reimbursement or expenditure piece. Like, the community is saying that education is important. And so we would appreciate your vote and that value statement of supporting education as we continue to advocate with the state. I really appreciate the mayor's efforts in collaboratively working with the legislator to be able to have forward thinking and how we fix the funding and how we readdress how we're looking at property taxes, because they shouldn't be a cost shifting. Our Constitution says that that is a constitutional requirement, and that's for us to adequately fund education here at the borough. We can help meet that right now. We can fill the gap and meet these students' needs. The student from River City Academy who testified had profound information, and you could tell that they were listening to the meetings. The cost of running their school is the average cost of a home on the peninsula. We can do this. You guys are all go-getters. We can do this. Please vote to fund to the cap. Thank you so much for your time and your volunteer efforts on the assembly. Thank you for representing.
Thank you for your testimony, Ms. Allen. Madam Clerk, do we have additional people signed up to give testimony?
That is all I have signed up.
Okay, all that we had on Zoom. Is there anyone else in the room that wishes to give testimony? Yes, please come to the microphone. State your name, city, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name's Patricia Boughton, Soldotna. So I'm going to ask you to not fund to the cap. Now, I sat in this room last year and I heard a lot of people came and wanted more money for education, and we funded to the cap last year. And what I heard last year is that you weren't going to do it this year, is that we cannot afford that. It is not sustainable. And what I hear from testifiers, I understand how hard it is for everybody, but what I really hear is how hard it is for the adults. I don't hear about the proficiency of our students. I don't hear about accountability of our schools. We can't keep throwing money at an education system that's broken. And granted, I understand where the parents are coming from. I was in the same situation probably 45 years ago, fighting the schools for what I wanted for my children. But the bottom line is we live in a different world right now. We are out of money. The state is out of money. I mean, they steal my permanent fund to pay for the taxes, which now I have to pay for all my insurance because that's what my permanent fund used to pay. And then they're stealing the permanent fund. And these are my words, stealing my permanent fund, but to pay for education. At what point are we going to make education become responsible for what they pay, for their management, for the proficiency rates? When are we going to do that? So I would ask you to not fund the cap. We just can't afford it anymore. We need to figure out a way that we have a balanced budget for the school board, for the assembly, for the state. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Do we have additional in the audience? Yes, please come to the microphone. Make sure the red button's on. State your name, and you'll have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dawn Magnus. I'm from Soldotna, and I would like to put my voice behind you guys funding for the cap this year. I think we are needing to bridge problems with the state funding that everybody's talking about. I do believe that the state constitution says that education is part of their duties, and we need to hold them to that. But we also need to survive until we can, and I would like to try to minimize the damage, because when people can't get the services they need at our schools, they disenroll, and there's more and more options coming in that allow them to move their money out of the district, and that can create a real problem. If students leave, then we get less money, and then our schools get worse, and schools are the backbone of communities. I also worry that it's not fair for certain communities to not have elementary schools. And my son's he's graduating this year from River City Academy. It was wonderful for him. He needed more self-autonomous learning, more individually based learning.
and he has a really good scholarship to Lewis and Clark for next year, so it served him well. And his needs are different, and he needed more contact with less teachers, and that he really thrived in that environment. So I want us to be able to provide services so parents stay. And to that end, I think we need more communication, and we need more problem-solving spaces with citizens. So, for example, Tustamina has less students, 250 less at the school, but why can't we talk to parents and see how many really want their children to be in Soldotna? And maybe some would be willing to have a smaller school, or maybe there's ways that we could problem solve. But I feel like there is a lack of communication between parents and the school district, and also the school district and the borough. And there needs to be collaboration because of the infrastructure issues. And so I would like to see more spaces for that, and some creative solutions, maybe like, charters have parent boards to guide school decisions. Maybe the board should have a couple parents from each school to represent those needs, and be talking more to connections to represent the needs so that students are staying in the district. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, Ms. Magnus. Is there any additional people in the room wishing to give public comment at this time? Okay, I'll go back to Zoom one more time. Is there anyone on Zoom wishing to give public comment?
I do not see any hands raised.
Okay. At this time, we'll close the public hearing on Resolution 2026-25, and we will move this to assembly discussion. So, is there any discussion from assembly members on Resolution 2026-25? None. Okay. Okay. Ms. Eklund.
Thank you, President Tunseth. I just wanted to give anyone an opportunity if they wanted to speak directly to 2625 before I brought forward the amendment. I have a lay-down amendment to Resolution 2625 determining the amount to be provided from local sources for school purposes during fiscal year 2027 and approving the Kenai Peninsula Borough School District total budget. This amendment will change the total of local funding contributions for education from $62,359.80 to $68,685.24, which is the maximum local contribution the Kenai Peninsula Borough can provide the school district for the fiscal year 2027. This will increase the mayor's proposed education budget by $6,325,944 for fiscal year 2027. The amendment will go to Section 2. The Assembly has copies of this. I'm not sure if there's any available out in the audience, but I'll read amendments on Section 2 as follows. The strike the $60,359,080 and that $68,685,024 shall be made available from local sources to fund school district operations for fiscal year 2027 as follows. The item A is the local effort, and strike $45,996,566 and change it to $52,322,510. The borough maintenance amount would stay the same. The school district utilities on this paper stays the same. I'm not sure how that's going to be affected by closure of schools and the pool agreements that are being made. Insurance is the same at this point. Audits are the same at this point. Custodial services are the same, although there was a deduction on scenario 2 to custodial days of work, so I'm not sure how that works. But the total local funding per AS 1417-410 would change from $62,359,080 to $68,685,024. And the Assembly's consideration is appreciated. And if I may discuss the amendment at this time?
Yeah, of course.
Thank you. Thank you. Earlier, I showed a difference between the fund balance from my budget book that I got the first year I was on the Assembly that showed that the Assembly adopted budget and then the projections for 23, 24, and 25. In this 2022 budget, it projected that the unreserved fund balance for the Kenai Peninsula Borough General Fund would be $15 million. In the current budget book, the projected amount for 2025, or the actual amount in the fund balance for 2025, was $52 million. So we can project all we want, but we do not know what is going to happen. And I'm going to look at some of the positive things that could happen instead of the negative. And I honor Brandy Harbaugh and her unbelievable mind to figure all these things out, but they are projections based on some scenarios. But what if our enrollments increased? What if the state changes the funding formula? What if we collect more property taxes? What if we collect more sales taxes? What if we get some lease funds from the 4 schools that we are closing? And I know that this amendment is not going to reopen the schools as I'm looking at it right now. I hope it could. I really hope it could. And I know that it's not going to keep the pools open. And I appreciate the mayor and Dana Canava's work with the schools and the schools, the communities, to keep those pools open. And I think that's going to happen. And I really think that the effort that the mayor has put forth in his years at Senate, when he was first in the Senate, he was working on forward funding the schools. And I know he's got ideas that he can communicate to them and help them get through this to come up with a better foundation formula. This change from the scenario 2 to the scenario 3 would put library aids back. It would keep some theater techs. It would keep the extracurricular fees that are in there, which means so much to the students, and get them in the school to do these extracurricular activities. It would keep some transportation costs there. It would keep some travel costs. It would keep student services and health services. These things that aren't reflected in grades, but that are so important to have, and to have more bodies in the school. You need bodies in the school. We have volunteers coming in to the middle school now to monitor lunch. I mean, more bodies can curb misbehavior so easily. I just think this is the least we can do, and I think it's the best for the kids. I heard a lot of best for earlier, but I did not hear what is best for the kids. And I believe our number one thing in this borough is to take care of our education funds and our kids, our future. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Ms. Eklund. So we have an amendment on the table at this time. We're discussing that. Mr. Eicher, I think I saw your light come on. Did you have some comment? Of course, go ahead.
What if the sky opens up and it literally rains cats and dogs? We can say what if all day, but we must make decisions based on the best information that we have available at the time that we make them. So yes, these are projections that we heard today, but I don't know how anyone could sit through the presentation that Ms. Harbaugh gave and still think that we can fund to the cap. We can't. We don't have the money without charging taxpayers more. So I do appreciate the work that the school board has done this year. I know it was not easy, so I appreciate it. You guys have a harder job than we do, most likely. So I will not be supporting the 68, but I will support the rest of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Eicher. Vice President Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. President. Our resolution before us is for setting the floor. And this isn't it's just setting the floor. And then we will go through this budget process and there will be amendments and we'll have all of that work completed. And then we will determine the final funding, whether it's the 62 or whatever number this body lands on. But tonight is what we do to respond to the request to set the floor. That isn't the final document. We haven't even started amending the budget yet. So I certainly, I don't believe there's a body sitting in this room that isn't here for the kids. I think every one of us that are parents or grandparents or educators or community members or value, I'm surrounded by young people and I value our youth and I value our education. But what we're doing tonight is we're setting the floor. The school district has made their request and there was a lot of work done between the two bodies to see where we could get started. And so the request that they made to us is what they have asked us for funding. And then our responsibility tonight is setting the floor. So I will not be supporting the amendment because I'm going to be focusing on setting the floor this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Cooper. Assemblymember Griebel.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. The only piece that I have is I first of all, I'm a strong proponent of education. I mean, I grew up in these schools. I was educated here. My daughter was educated here. Our schools are high functioning related to any other districts in the state. They do a fine job with what they're given. With this amendment particularly, I listened to Ms. Harbaugh's presentation earlier today. I believe it's founded on good forecast data. And this snippet from the 2022 budget, it is absolutely correct that forecast was not accurate in the end. But the issue I see there that's prevalent is that 2020 to 24 window saw a massive amount of COVID stimulus money. That changed the perspective and the complexion of the budget for all of the borough and all of the state and all of the nation, basically, for a number of years. Whereas I believe that the forecast forward is based on pretty strong data. This 2020 year suffered an anomaly in funding that can't be replicated again. Therefore, I'll stick with the base resolution and go on with the recommendation of the school board, superintendent, and mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Griebel. Ms. Eklund.
Thank you for opportunity to speak towards what the resolution that is before us 2026-25 says. It says that in the end of the first whereas, which I know isn't the meat, it is just the background. And it says that the total amount of money to be made available from local sources for school purposes and must furnish to the school board a statement of that sum to be made available within 30 days of receipt of their budget. Okay? We received the budget from the school district on April 14th. Okay, so it says the total amount local sources must furnish school board a statement of the sum. So I'm confused that the way this is written says that this is just the floor. It reads like it's the total sum. And our next meeting is May 19th, farther than 30 days out. So I will bring it back on the 19th. I'll bring it back on the 2nd. I know that the ordinance that Ms. Harbaugh presented tonight is where the final change to the funding of the school budget would be made anyway, even if this amendment passes or doesn't pass, that it can come forward again. But the way this reads is confusing to me.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Eklund. Mr. Kelly, could you clarify that, please? My feeling is that we have the power of the purse up to a certain amount, and so I don't particularly read it that way. But Mr. Kelly, could you clarify, please?
Thank you. Through the president. So I would agree with Ms. Cooper's statement that this resolution has always been setting the floor, approving the total amount of the budget that the school district passes, which includes in section 1 their total expenditures, and then section 2 is the amount that basically the minimum amount that will be made available for local sources. So it's, and I'm not going to dispute how the whereas reads, but it's basically always been interpreted as just setting the floor. It's not an appropriation, obviously, because it's a resolution, and that the 26-19 budget ordinance is the final say on the overall budget, including the required local contribution.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kelly. Ms. Eklund.
Could these resolutions state that? There's nothing in this resolution that states that this amount is the floor. And so this is my 5th year on the assembly, and it's, I've always voted on education budgets to fund as much as we can. Sometimes I probably voted no on what we were funding because I wasn't in agreement with it, but it doesn't say floor, and I just don't know why. And maybe Mr. Kelly can say why that isn't in there, and maybe next year we can add it.
Mr. Kelly, did you want to go again?
Through the president, I guess it's colloquial, like it's been referred to as the floor, but there's nothing in the state statute that calls it the floor. So I think it could maybe be stated that that this will be the minimum amount made available to the school district if the body so desires that to be a whereas statement or otherwise in the resolution. There's that would be fine, but so it's always been just referred to as setting the floor, but it's true that it doesn't actually call it that in the state statute.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kelly. Madam Clerk, if I speak on this, do I need to pass the gavel to Vice President Cooper? Okay, I'm going to, at this time, pass the gavel to Vice President Cooper, and maybe just say a few words about this. So, just briefly on the comment that Ms. Eklund just made, it references the local effort. The local effort's the only piece that you suggested changing, and so my thought is you could always just come back and say this is the amount for borough maintenance or something and approach it that way and not have to worry about the word total. Anyways, thank you, Mr. Torianen, for being here today. I watched all the meeting last night. You guys had a really lengthy meeting with a lot of comments, and thank you for everybody who's given public testimony tonight as well. I think that some of the testimony, in my opinion, is a bit like aiming at the wrong person, a little bit misguided, in that what I believe we're trying to do is, have a strategy that's managing the funds that we have in this borough for all of the residents in this borough the most responsibly that we possibly can. And we also know that we need the state to uphold their end. And so we can't be in a position where we're letting them off the hook. And we very much are in a position where we're collaborating and working together. This year I felt that more than ever. But the facts of the matter are, Ms. Eklund, you stated that you feel like this is the least we can do. Your amendment's actually the most we can do. The least that we can do is $39 million. We certainly don't think that that's a great approach. Even if we funded at the maximum cap, in all of the budget reduction scenarios that I've seen, it still doesn't bring back any of those schools. So we're in tough shape, and it doesn't bring back a lot of the programs as well. So we're in tough shape, and we can't do it alone with just funding to the cap. So we have to make sure that we're working together to get the state to fix this, and I think we're doing that. We have bills that we're pushing, and we're doing that. But here's the reality at the borough. It's 67% of our budget. It is by far the largest thing that we pay for. So I don't know any other way other than it looks to me like on a pie chart, it looks like Pac-Man eating everything else. That's what education funding looks like from the Kenai Peninsula Borough. So any insinuation that we don't support education is so far beyond the pale that it's just wrong. And there's really no other way to say that. And so that's my point, is if you're saying that, you're pointing at the wrong person. We are also the highest borough per student of funding. It's KPB per student, $7,600. Fairbanks, $5,800. Matsu, $4,200. Our funding represents a 6.44 mil rate. We would have to put an increase to meet this if we funded to the cap, and we would be out of money in the fund balance in like 2 years. We all sat through the presentation. So that would be really fiscally irresponsible, in my opinion, to do that. We have to continue to work together to make sure that we're aiming at the right place for the right fixes. And lastly, I'm not trying to pick a fight here, but the school district has a 2.5% increase for their employees on the table. It's the same increase that we just approved for the employees of this borough. And it's been denied. It's not been accepted. And the comments that you hear back come back to the school district saying, you need to do better, you need to do more. It's $3 million. It's by far the largest increase that they have on their reduction scenario sheet, by far. $3 million. So the further this type of thing goes on, the easier it is to say, when you talk about who the bargaining chips are, the bargaining chips are the kids at this point. And it's the teachers that are using them. Because $3 million, you could also look at and say, it's more important to the teachers that they get a bigger raise than $3 million than it is to keep your school or your pool. So, I think that we are on the right approach, and it drives me absolutely nuts when the facts are misinterpreted and the weapon is aimed at the school board, who has worked incredibly hard to do the best that they can to balance this, and pointed at us to say, either fund to the cap or you don't care about education. It's Pac-Man eating everything else, and if we continue to do that, it will eat everything else, and we'll be out of money. I think I'll just stop there. Thank you.
Returning the gavel.
Thank you, Vice President Cooper. Assemblymember Neeson.
Thank you. I appreciate those remarks. I'm a product of public education. I support it. I have several family members who are public school teachers. But if you were here earlier, you would have heard that 67% of our budget, 67% of the borough-wide budget goes to schools. It goes to between the local contribution, which is a portion of that, but not all of it, and capital outlays and debt service. 67%, $67 out of every 100. Out of every 1,670 go to schools. I just can't go back and tell people I was okay with more than that right now. I think that this is enough. So I can't support the amendment. Thank you.
Assemblymember Truesdale.
Yeah, thank you. I'll be short. I came to the meeting tonight incredibly excited because of this resolution 2026-25. I feel like it is exactly what we needed to do to up the funding to the $62 million, because it added back in a PTR decrease, distance ed, programmatic staffing. I am this liaison to the school district. I was a 26-year employee of the school district. I'm a K-12 product of the school district. And in every single conversation I had, sit down with the finance president of the school district, of the school board, sit down with Mr. Holland, there was never a single time where we discussed the cap. It was unrealistic from the beginning. It was never part of the conversation. It just wasn't realistic, and it still isn't realistic. I'm excited about the add-ins that come back with this resolution. I won't be voting for the amendment, but I am excited about the resolution in itself. Thanks.
Thank you, Assemblymember Truesdell. Assemblymember Dunn.
Thanks, Mr. President. I'd like to speak to the amendment so that I can explain my vote. We're debating whether or not to fund to the cap, but we will have 2 additional meetings to decide if we want to increase the level above 62.4 million that would set the floor for this with this amendment. So I am more interested in the process. If this resolution passes at the $62.4 million level, we will have time and place, and we will have opportunities for public comment on whether to increase that amount above 62.4. I'm a little surprised, or I was surprised when I found out last week that the number in the setting the floor resolution was at 62.4, because news reports and reports we had been hearing was that it was going to be closer to 57 million. So I'm pleased that it's above that level, but I also have been paying attention to public comment. Public comment's been overwhelmingly in favor of funding to the cap. We have in our packet a document that shows 154 people contacting the borough supporting funding to the cap and 89 people opposing it. So I'm sure more people will have a chance over the next 2 meetings, May 19th and June 2nd, I believe, to give us their opinions. What I haven't heard is if people would like to see their taxes raised in order to fund to the cap. Right now we have a pretty low mill rate, 3.85. It was reduced from 4.3 a while ago. And in our budget presentations today, there's some potential projections that show that it might have to increase again. Our budget document shows a potential 4.2 mill rate in the fiscal year 2030. So those are all projections. Those are just helping us decide. But my vote on the amendment is more about process. So the resolution is not the final number. This is just setting the floor. It's very obvious, and I have said this at other public meetings, that there's many things broken about our school funding situation, both with the timing of how the school district and the school board has to set their budget without knowing what the Kenai Peninsula Borough budget is, without knowing what the state budget is, and it seems backwards. That the idea of forward funding, I think, is really important. I was hoping that our assembly could have supported a resolution at our last meeting to encourage the state to increase the base student allocation. I disagree with what I've heard earlier, that we're out of money. I think it is a priority issue. We're setting priorities. Do we want to keep the mill rate low, or keep it at where it is, or do we want to potentially increase school funding and potentially increase the mill rate by a very small amount? I would like to hear from people if they're interested in seeing their taxes raised in order to pay for an increase in education. I'm heartbroken too that 4 schools were closed, and another school closed last year. The Nicolaiva school. So 5 schools closed in the past 2 years. It's really disheartening and discouraging to see that. So I think this amendment submitted by Assembly Member Eklund is a good conversation starter, but we do have time to continue that discussion, get more input from the public if we want to increase the funding above the $62.4 million that this resolution sets. So I look forward to those discussions and debates over the next couple of meetings. Thanks.
Thank you, Assemblymember Dunn. Any other Assembly comments? Okay, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll on the amendment?
The vote is open.
Yes, thank you, Vice President Cooper. So again, for the people in public listening, we have an amendment on the floor right now. That amendment amends Section 2 so that it would read that $68,685,024 shall be made available from local sources to fund school district operations for the fiscal year 2027 as follows, and it adjusts item A, local effort, from $45,996,566 to $52,322,510, and again changes the local funding per AS 1417-410 from $62,359,080 to $68,685,024.
Mr. Hicks, your vote, please.
No.
Ms. Neeson, your vote, please.
No.
Mr. Dunn, your vote, please.
No.
I have 8 no, 1 yes. The yes vote was cast by Ms. Eklund. The motion fails.
Okay, Madam Clerk, so that brings us back to the main motion to adopt 2026-25 as written. Resolution 2025 or 2026-25 is determining the amount to be provided from local sources for school purposes during fiscal year 2027 and approving the Kenai Peninsula Borough School District total budget. This was brought to us by the mayor. Mayor Machicki, did you have a comment? No. Okay, so again, this current resolution reads in section 2 that $62,359,080 shall be made available from local sources to fund school district operations for fiscal year 2027 as follows. Under A, local effort, that's $45,996,566, with a total local funding per AS 1417-410 of $62,359,080. Is there any discussion about the motion to adopt? Ms. Eklund.
I will not be supporting the resolution as written. Thank you.
Okay. Any additional comments? Mayor Machicki.
Thank you, Mr. President. This resolution is $3.3 million more than 2.5%. And I appreciate that a couple of you are surprised. This is the result of spending an enormous amount of time with educators, school board members, superintendent on what they need. And the biggest cuts that occurred, again, the schools are not being considered for reopening. We continue to decline on student numbers. A couple of different reasons. 30-something% are homeschooling. We're losing families because of other challenges here on the Kenai. It's a tough place to live. We're trying to work in all these different avenues to help support the district in turning that around. I asked the hospital tonight about if they do an exit poll survey on people that are using charitable care to try to find out what's happening with some of these families that are having a tough time paying their bills. We're doing the best we can. But a couple of things were presented tonight. One was the general fund unreserved fund balance from 2019 until the projection of FY25. In 2019, the KPBSD created a consolidation plan because the writing was on the wall. And because of COVID and the $70 million that came in roughly, they were saved. Other districts acted. And when they acted, it results like Fairbanks this year had a $2.6 or $2.9 million surplus in their budget. Reality is reality. And I get that the local neighborhood school impacts are difficult on families. Some families, a lot of those families are already attending, the majority often in cases are attending schools in town. We should make that positive for those kids because it will be. We're going to be paying for 3 less buildings and adding programs to schools that where those dollars won't be paying for half-empty buildings. That's not a negative thing. That will end up being a positive thing for kids. But I wish we gave the finance presentation during this meeting. We never do. We always do it the same way. We always do the same floor thing. We never talk about the reality of the math and how incredibly supportive we are of education. All of my kids were educated here, 2 still are. My little girl's school is not being rebuilt because the bond didn't pay for it and it doesn't solve any problems. Programs are being cut at my older girl's school. We saw this starting years back. Since the peak, late 90s, student population started dropping off, funding started getting tight. Schools are not the same as they were because we don't have a willing partner. But this borough is the most generous borough and will continue to be as long as I'm here. We're going to stretch it to the limit like we did this year, which is why I came in at 62. That's 3.3 million more than we can afford. But we know that the school board is working really hard. They had a very difficult meeting, facing reality, looking at ways to improve student outcomes, bring some kids back into buildings with hybrid models. I think you're doing that, Jason. You should if you're not. Education is different, and if we keep trying to sell the same model, we are not going to succeed. There's a video that a constituent had some pretty negative comments about me before she heard me talk about education. Probably didn't know about my history fighting for education. But she listened to me talk at a meeting and just recently put out a video that I think is excellent. It talks about the fact that we have to look at education differently. We must look at education differently. The most important part is getting a state that has grown up to be an adult and facing its constitutional requirements to share with local communities the funding of education. Doesn't mean throwing billions at it. It means looking at a realistic set point. Maybe it was last year's BSA, maybe it's a different BSA, and escalation is absolutely required in responsible funding, like we do here every year. So we're pinching back on borough employees. They're having to live with less every day so we can give more and more money. $8 million in the last 2 years. We care most about public education. The Pac-Man model, to give you numbers about what that means, 67% in education, $74 million in this budget. The next department is 21% for all the rest of general government. And then 12% for solid waste. We value education beyond reason and beyond, so far recently, beyond mathematical sustainability. And we're proud to do it one more year. It's tight. We can't do it another year. We have to get back to our 2.5% model. But we will work tirelessly with our legislators and the next governor, who hopefully is more supportive of public education, on an outcome that includes escalation, understanding that inflation is the thief in the night, that is a real thing. and I appreciate you supporting this tonight. I think instead of creating false hope on a higher number, which we do when we say things like it's just the floor, this is after working with the district on what returns things like, oh, let's see, got a text from a school board member and one from the superintendent. They approved non-tenured teachers' contracts and agreed to reverse the cuts for PTR increases for all the schools, reinstated librarians, reinstated programmatic staffing, reinstated distance ed positions. They still have more work to do. Hopefully there's some funding from the state by the time this legislative session is over. We work together to deliver the most critical, and I'm proud of that. Clayton and I, almost every day. It's a much better relationship than it's ever been. We're going to be spending a lot of quality time together. Same thing with the president. Kind of know him outside of here, but I appreciate you leading the school board into doing what we can to manage through this while we bring the state to the table. So thank you very much for your support tonight. I'm pretty good at counting votes. I think I know how it's going to go. Be careful what you say on creating false hope. Make sure we put the pressure where the pressure should go. And let's hope for a stronger relationship with the state that results in long-term sustainable funding, where the only two things they fight about isn't education and the PFD every year, and they can get some other problems solved in our state.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, I'm going to pass the gavel to Vice President Cooper, just briefly. Passing the gavel. Thank you, Vice President Cooper. I just, again, thank you, Mayor, for those comments. And the comments that I want to make right now are just directed towards Ms. Eklund. I want you to at least consider not being a no vote on this. I think that, this has been a collaborative effort. This is something where we are approving the budget that the school board has asked us to approve. Came off of the original number at 62.3 million. And I think that it in my opinion, is something that you would want to support, that you would want to be a part of this vote to support education to the level that we are, and also is something that the Assembly, I think, would want to be unanimous on and show that we are supportive. I understand the passion that you have related to that. I have passion as well. I just would kindly ask if you would reconsider what you had already said. And so with that, I'll stop and I'll take the gavel back. Thank you, Vice President Cooper. Mayor Machicki. Okay, we just had a light on. Ms. Eklund.
Thank you for your opinion, President Tunseth. I've never really understood the reason that everybody has to vote the same way when you don't approve of something. Just to show a united front, it'll be an 8-1 vote. It's a democracy. You win the vote. But I am not in favor of funding to that level. I think we should fund education, should be the highest thing we fund, because it's the most important. It's our future. It's our kids. It's a value statement. And so if you can explain to me the benefit of having unanimous vote, what is that? Is that to make you feel good, or is it to win over something? Is it going to make the state give us more money if we have a unanimous vote on this resolution? I'd love your input.
I'll be briefly passing the gavel back to Ms. Cooper.
Taking the gavel.
Thank you, Vice President Cooper. Very briefly, Ms. Eklund, I just it's not necessarily important to me if it's not unanimous. it's my opinion that I think it would be important to you and the right thing to do. But that's all. I understand your position as well. So you're welcome. Okay.
Returning the gavel.
Thank you. Taking the gavel back. Well, that was fun. Okay. So I guess that brings us back to any further discussion from the assembly. Assemblymember Neeson.
Thank you. So I attended a forum before I was elected, and one of the questions in the forum was, how will you vote on something or other? Can't remember what it was. But my answer to that was, every single time, I will collect all of the information at hand, and I'll do what's reasonable. When we started this conversation, the number that was coming up was 59 million and something. It was following the general curve of allowing from year before last, which last year was an anomaly. Year before last, a cost of living increase to last year, another cost of living increase to this year. When I heard that this was 63, I thought it was a good compromise. I looked at all of the information. I looked at what the school board was deciding. I looked at the whole situation, and I think this is what is reasonable. So I'm going to support this resolution, just like I said I would. Thanks.
Thank you, Assemblymember Neeson. Any further comments? Okay, so at this time I would ask Madam Clerk to open the roll on the motion to adopt.
The vote is open. Mr. Hicks, your vote, please.
Yes.
Ms. Neeson, your vote, please.
Yes.
Mr. Dunn, your vote, please.
Yes.
I have 8 yes, 1 no. The no vote was cast by Ms. Eklund. The motion passes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Okay, so that brings us, I guess this brings us to our second opportunity for public comment. Is that right? So we'll be at our second opportunity for public comment and presentations. I'll remind commenters again that they'll have 3 minutes. Please state their name and where they live for the record. Madam Clerk, is there anyone signed up?
No, sir.
Okay, is there anyone in the room wishing to give additional public comment? Okay, come on up.
Patricia Boughton, Soldotna. Yeah, I think you guys have done a good job. Like Representative Neeson said, it's a good compromise. However, this has been coming, the lack of finances and the lack of funding from the state, from the borough, has been coming for a very long time. So I would like to suggest that every year we start looking at ways to cut. We're running out of money, and I know you think the state is not out of money, but in my mind it is, because we have no new resources. We have nothing coming in, really, except the permanent fund. And they're working on it, but we have nothing that's going to cover between now and when oil can flow again or when we get other resources coming. So I would just like to see a continual adjustment to having less funding.
Thank you for your comment. I'll go back to the clerk again. Is there anyone signed up on Zoom or with a hand raised on Zoom wishing to comment?
I do see a couple hands.
Okay.
First is Winter Marshall Allen.
Okay, Ms. Allen, you'll have 3 minutes.
Good evening, and thank you again. I appreciate all of your time. I appreciate the conversation. Representative Dunn, I appreciate you sharing your perspective with regards to why you voted down the amendment. Representative Eklund, I really appreciate you and all of your advocacy. You have consistently always voted to fund to the cap and fund for education. It is a value statement, and I'm not saying that anybody there doesn't value education. We have all tightened our belts Teachers and educators this year, both classified and certified, have worked all year long without a contract because we love our students and because we're invested in our communities. The current state of things is pushing an exodus. And unless we can think about things differently, like Mayor Machiki has said, unless we can reinvent how we want to provide educational opportunities for our students, they're going to continue to leave. Yes, we do need to think about things differently. I hope this really is the floor. No, we don't need to fund this to the ceiling. I wrote in a letter earlier in this conversation after the finance meeting that happened in Homer, asking for actually, I believe, 66.2 million, I believe is what I wrote in that letter as an in-between, which would still bring in the funding for student support services. It would bring back our library aides. It would bring back the nursing staff that is set to be cut right now, and a few other things. No, we don't need more curriculum. We don't need more physical things. We need services and the people who provide those services. As a special education teacher who provides intensive needs students, whose students on the formula are funded at 13 times the funding and allowance for a student, I have less staffing now with the same amount of students than I had when I took my job 9 years ago. And I understand that part of this is the state's problem. So then my question becomes to you is, what is the forward narrative that you are asking the public in order to support the advocacy that is happening at the state level to support this funding for these bills? And yes, Representative Dunn, I am willing to pay more taxes. I believe what you proposed is less than or right at $500,000 increase. I would take $500,000. I would take another full meal increase in order to fund our schools, in order to meet the needs of our students so that we can keep the brains and the talents here on the peninsula and not have a continued brain drain of people leaving the peninsula, let alone leaving our public buildings. Thank you so much for the time. Thank you for your advocacy. Thank you for volunteering to serve our communities.
Thank you for your comment, Ms. Allen. Madam Clerk, who's next?
I believe it's Robin Stating.
Okay, Ms. Stating, you're next. You'll have 3 minutes. Please state your name, city that you live in, and the floor is yours.
All right, good evening. My name is Rob Ann Stating. I am a Homer resident. And first off, thank you for passing this amount of funding that can be used for our school and for our school district. I am a special ed teacher down here in Homer. I serve 5 schools this year directly and support new to profession teachers in 3 other schools. This is certainly the most I have ever been spread for the particular position I have. I enjoy it. I've been in the district for 20 years, and I do enjoy mentoring other people and bringing them to special ed, but it is a lot of work. And so when we say that our district is doing well, we are doing well. Our numbers are higher than most of the state, but we're doing well, and we are getting really, really thin. What Mayor Machicki said about other ways of doing education, there really are some incredible ideas that are out there. They sound crazy. Oh my goodness, let's let students have a choice of how they get their content delivered to them. Or maybe instead of writing a paper, you're doing a podcast. What in the world could we possibly do with that? Well, we can attract students and we can keep families in our district. We can keep people in Alaska. I'll also say that I'm a parent of 3 students, 1 alumni from KPBSD, and she will graduate college this year. They will graduate college this year, which is fantastic, but they have 0 desire to come back to Alaska because there is not a projection of success for them up here. And I will support that decision, even though it's 4,000 miles away. But one last thing. I understand that the district can only spend the money it's given, and that folks like myself, as a 20-year veteran teacher, cost a lot of money, and that we have to cut things because we can't generate revenue. You can't spend the money you don't have. But I know that there are people and agencies and organizations who can get more revenue, the state being number one. But also, to answer your question, I too would support a modest tax mill rate as a property owner. That's a revenue stream. Our state needs to be looking for revenue streams, and we could be looking for them too as local government. So enough with robbing Peter to pay Paul. They're all leaving the state for better outcomes. So again, thank you for this step of giving the school district a number to work with. I'm pleased that some of my colleagues will be staying on in positions that are necessary for the smallest of our schools, because I serve those, especially distance ed. That's encouraging. But we have to keep fighting, not fighting the state, we have to keep advocating for the state. Thank you for all that you're doing with that as well. And our borough does appreciate students, absolutely. And thank you for the support.
Okay, thank you for your comments, Ms. Stating. Do we have anyone else on Zoom? Okay, let's go back to the room one more time. Yes, go ahead and come up. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Dawn Magnus from Soldotna, and I want to thank you all for explaining your votes. And I do understand the need to, be fiscally responsible and have stable projections for the future. And so I appreciate that, and I appreciate Mayor Machichi's efforts to try to do some forward funding, because I think, coming up before and saying fund to the cap was just to try to bridge the crisis we're in with the state not meeting its obligations. And I don't want us to have a narrative of decline where we don't have any new revenue streams and we can't have good schools and people are leaving the state. And so I just want to come up one more time and say, look, I appreciate the work you do. I appreciate the work the board does. And I would like to find more spaces where we could be innovative and creative, because I do think education's changing. I think society's changing. I think we're in a time of rapid transformation. And I'd just like to pitch one more time. And I'm new. I just recently retired, so I have more time to be engaged. So I'm still learning how things work. But I would really like to have opportunities for people to come in and share ideas so we could build some shared vision and momentum and maybe change the way things are done so we can use our dollars more effectively and deliver services and make people excited to live here and proud of the schools we have. The middle college was a great example of that. I used to tell friends in the lower 48 about it, and people would say, wow, we don't have that here. That's amazing. And so I just want us to have those stories to share and to be proud of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Magnus. Excellent comment. Okay, Mr. Torianen.
All right, Jason Torianen, Nikiski, Alaska. I didn't say that before, so I assume most of you knew where I live. And I have 8 kids. All of them have gone through this district. I have 2 left that are still in this district. So I'm a parent. I'm also a husband of an educator. I have a lovely wife that works in Nikiski North Star. She's awesome. She just received a really nice teacher appreciation gift, which is Teacher Appreciation Week. So if you get a chance, let them know. But a student wrote something in her journal he gave to her that was like brought tears to her eyes for sure. Even choked me up. Peter, don't judge me. But it was pretty sweet. And our teachers work incredibly hard, and I do appreciate them. And I care about our schools. I'm a product of this school district. I'm a lot like Sarge. I worked here for a long time. I'm definitely not an elitist. I worked as a paraprofessional, special education aide. I went to work as a custodian for a while at the end of my time at the school district, which I worked at for over 15 years. So I could go back to school to be a paramedic, and that's what I do now in the fire department. And I've got a lot of friends, we got a lot of family that work in these schools, and I care deeply. I did want to just address the fact that as the board, we will continue to work. So we have some work to do now. We did some of the things we had to get done to get contracts out. anticipating this positive vote, and I appreciate you guys voting for this, and I appreciate your comments. I appreciate the desire to fund as much as possible. Everybody's got a little bit different opinion on that. I would love to have more money. I think it would be really difficult to do what the state has done and put the cap as high as it is right now. And I think they need to get on their horse and work and get it done. And that's what I'm going to fight for, and that's where I'm going to put my efforts. Because I don't think if we got it from here, it would drive us down to a point where the borough would really struggle. And the state has to meet their obligation. And I'm going to fight for that. And I'm going to do everything we can to have our schools be the best place they can be. Because that's my job on the board for 9 years now. That's also because I'm a parent. It's also because I'm a community member. I love Nikiski. I love the borough. I love Alaska. And I want to be here. And I've got 2 granddaughters. So they're coming. And I want good schools for them too. But I really appreciate your vote tonight. I wanted people to know that we do have opportunities for people to be involved with site councils at all our schools, for parents to be involved. We do forums already for people to be involved and give input. And we're going to continue to do that. Obviously, we have lots of public testimony, much more than you have. I felt like I needed to come up here just to make your meeting a little bit longer because I was there until almost 10 o'clock last night. And the one before, I ended at 11:59. So can we get there? We'll see if we can get there tonight. Yeah, nice job. Good job on the dinger. Thank you very much for the vote. It's really going to help. We're going to get to work.
Thank you, Mr. Torianen. Okay, anyone else in the room? Yes, sir. Come on up to the microphone. You'll have 3 minutes. Again, make sure the red light's on, state your name and city that you're from.
Hi, my name is Kenneth Fine. I'm from Soldotna. I am a big advocate for public education in my school, and I was coming here planning on being a strong, we need to fund our schools, we need to fund our schools, we need to protect public education. But from listening all to you tonight, I feel like you all have a true passion for public education. I actually want to thank specifically Mr. Truesdale and Mayor Machicki. I know that you guys care about public education because I've seen it in my school specifically. I know Mayor Machicki helped with our prom, and I know Truesdale from being our former great principal. But I think that this funding, even going over what the borough is already able to do, I think is an amazing starting point. And all I want you guys to do is make sure that you're not having empty words when you say that you're going to urge our state legislatures to actually get the job done and give us more money, because I appreciate all that you do to give us as much funding as you can with the fiscal problem that we're in as a borough, but I just want to make sure that we're then taking the next steps to make sure the state upholds their end and their responsibility by actually funding our schools fully. I thank you so much for all of your work. Thank you so much for this $62 million. It's truly amazing that we were able to get that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Kenneth, one last time, what was your last name? Fine. Damn fine job there, Kenneth. Sorry, just happens. Okay, any additional public comments? Okay, no one else on Zoom? That's how it should be. That's a good one to end on. Okay, so at this time we'll close our second opportunity for public comment, and I believe that brings us to assembly comments. Let's start with you, Mr. Dunn.
Sure thing. Thanks, Mr. President. Thank you, everybody who participated tonight. We're going to have another month of budget deliberations and discussions over another couple of meetings, and looking forward to more public comment. We've been getting a lot of emails, and I also get telephone calls, and I get people stop me in the grocery store aisle and the post office and down at the harbor, and sharing their opinions about what is important to them at the borough, and education is one of the top most important subjects I'm hearing from people on, and the funding levels particularly. I also wanted to just comment on a couple of things that we did tonight. I was really happy to co-sponsor the ordinance that transfers 5 borough parcels on Ketchmack Drive to the Ketchmack Sponge Project.
it's been a long time coming. I was involved in previous service on the assembly to help set those parcels aside for future use in a Ketchimak sponge project. It's actually letting wetlands, natural wetlands, help mitigate stormwater. It's allowing wetlands to provide essential ecological functions rather than clearing them and filling them and having the stormwater cause more problems than it already is. So that was a very beneficial project in my opinion, and thank you to the mayor for allowing me to co-sponsor that. Also want to thank John Crocker from Anchor Point for stepping up to apply for the Resilience and Security Advisory Commission. I haven't met him personally, but have chatted with him and looking forward to having him on the RSAC. I am the assembly liaison with that commission, and we'll be meeting tomorrow, 6 p.m. Via Zoom. You can find the Zoom link on the Borough website, and urge the public to check that out and participate. Lots of good information and discussion, and trying to find solutions for the waste stream going into our landfills, and it's been a very positive discussion around that. Also want to congratulate Mike Wojak on receiving the Alan Haskins Principal Award, well-deserved award for Principal Wojak. He's principal of 2 schools out at the end of East End Road, Ketchimak Silo and Vosnesenka schools. And I've met Mike a few times, and also happy that he is also serving on the Ketchimak Emergency Services Area Board. So he's not only serving our students and our public education, but he's serving the public on that advisory board, that Emergency Services Advisory Board also. So. But, as far as education, I look forward to more comment and more participation from the public, more ideas. I like a lot of what I heard tonight, this idea of looking at education differently and how can we do things better and different. And the lack of funding available is just the reality. And yeah, we have to deal with the reality, but we can also advocate for our students. I don't look at school funding as throwing money at schools like I've heard some people say. I look at it as an investment in our children, in our future. And public education is really, it does take a large part of our general fund budget. If we look at our total budget with all these service areas, it's not such a dramatic portion of our total borough budget, but it does take a big portion of the general fund budget, as it should, because I think it's one of the, if not, I think it is the most important function we do as a borough. And there are other important functions, but education is always at the top of my list. We found ourselves in a very similar situation last year where we voted to set the floor at a certain amount, and we had lots of discussion, debate, public input, and we ended up raising that amount. And, as was discussed earlier, I don't want to give anybody false hope. That was a different assembly last year. We have 5 new members, and we have a different dynamics and different members, and I can count votes too. And I think it's very doubtful we can fund to the cap this year. That doesn't mean I won't support that. I support adequate and full funding for schools, but I look forward to a debate and discussion and looking at the realities of how much revenue we have and how much revenue the state provides and how much is a reasonable amount to fund for schools. So look forward to that discussion over the next couple of meetings. I read a new term, well, new to me, maybe it's been in circulation for a while, but referring to our public schools, particularly in Alaska, the standard of neglect. I know in the past 8 years under the state leadership that we've had, school funding has been decreased through flat funding, through lack of keeping up with inflation, through no escalation clauses in any of our funding. So our schools have suffered, as we see with school closures, as we see with so many things. That standard of neglect is not acceptable. I think that our kids deserve more. I'll just end with my daughter, who much smarter than me,
maybe that's because she's a product of Kenai Peninsula Borough Schools, and I wasn't. She's a financial professional, and we've had some difficult discussions because she's looking at what her grandkids might or might not receive as far as educational opportunities, and whether she might have to leave the state or leave the district that she's in now in order to get a better education for her students because of this standard of neglect. So it breaks my heart to think of that. And I will continue to support schools, to stand up for schools. Teachers are my heroes. I used to work in environmental education, and when I would go into a school and spend, 4 hours or 6 hours in a school, I was exhausted, and I realized teachers do this every single day, and I would be exhausted after one day of doing an environmental ed program. So I know our teachers work really hard, and they care about their students, they love their jobs, and I will continue to support them. So thank you. See you next meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Dunn. Assemblymember Neeson.
Thank you, President Tensa. First, I want to plug Nikiski Middle High School. They're putting on a production of Anything Goes, and I hear it's very good. I haven't been yet, but it's still going on this Friday and Saturday at 7, so if you can get out there, I think it'd be worth your time. After our last assembly meeting in Seward, I stayed over, and on April 23rd, a couple of days later, I attended the KPEDD, Economic Development District Industry Outlook Forum. And it was really interesting. We had a lot of good conversations. We heard from Seward's mayor and their city manager about their new cruise ship terminal and the modernization of the port, which will have a contribution if we have the LNG project come through, and their new cruise ship shore power project. They have some really good ideas down there, and they're pursuing them, and I thought it was great to hear about that. Frank Richards of AGDC reported on the LNG project. He was optimistic. I think Mayor Michicki actually gave us more information tonight. Andy Wink of Wink Research discussed the KPED housing assessment that he did and the effect of available housing on development, which is kind of an important aspect of that. Dr. Corey Ortiz, who's the director of AvTech, spoke and talked about their vocational program in Seward. And they're looking, along with KPED, at supporting a similar program on this side of the peninsula, which I would really love to see. Although we do have some other opportunities here that I think are very good also, as we heard from KPC earlier. So in other liaison duties, on April 27th, I went to the North Peninsula Recreation Service Area meeting. They talked about those heating units that we discussed earlier tonight, and their hot tub policy, and they had a work session on that last night, and they should be hiring a new director in the very near future. On April 29th, I attended the Nikiski Senior Service Area meeting, and there was discussion about their budget. They also expressed appreciation for the mayor's support of their budgetary needs to provide senior services in Nikiski. So upcoming, I have Nikiski Advisory Planning Commission meeting on May 7th, Nikiski Community Council meeting on May 11th, and Nikiski Fire Service Area meeting on May 13th. So a lot to do there. Thank you for your comments tonight. Dawn is still here, and I really did appreciate what you said about innovation. I think it's really important to think outside the box. So thanks everybody for a good talk tonight.
All right, thank you, Assemblymember Neeson. Assemblymember Griebel.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I'll be brief. I did not have any liaison duties in the interim since the last meeting. Those meetings are scheduled between this and the next, so I'll report on those at the next meeting. I want to go back to earlier today and thank the staff and departments for their budget presentations. All of the borough appears to be doing what they can to keep as lean as possible, and that's very much appreciated as a taxpayer and as a borough assembly member. On education, I very, very much appreciate hearing everyone's advocacy. Sometimes your actions they get put in a box when you're on a body like this. It is the most important thing that we do as a body. And I very, very much appreciate the efforts of the board and the school district administration. I worked for the borough for a long time. I've never witnessed a group that worked so cohesively with the borough as a team. There's always been so much of a versus attitude, and I do really feel going forward, I have confidence that the team effort is really going to pay off for this district. I thank you all for your attendance, and I'll turn over the mic. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Griebel. Assemblymember Hicks.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll also be brief. For those that are listening, I tell you, I am constantly impressed with the level of professionalism in our borough, from our mayor all the way down to the finance and clerk and everybody that ends up coming before us, bringing information, searching out that information, and just really impressed with that. But also very much appreciate the ability to work together with this assembly. This assembly, there is a freedom, there is even a cordiality, a friendship that we're allowed to speak our mind and vote our conscience, even if it's one standing alone. That's all right. That's all right. And it's allowed. It's even encouraged. And I appreciate that. I came here expecting something very different, and I have been very pleasantly surprised. And I'd like to just say that for those that would be listening that maybe had the same thoughts that I used to carry. And it is a pleasure to work with all of you. And with that, I'll turn it over.
Thank you, Mr. Hicks. Assemblymember Eicher.
Thank you. I just want to echo what Mr. Griebel and Mr. Hicks said as well. Those took the words right out of my mouth. I would encourage anyone who is interested in the subject to go back and listen to the committee meeting, the finance committee that we had this afternoon, when it's live on the website. It was very informative, and I think it shows why a lot of assembly members feel the way they do on the budget, on school funding. But that's my personal opinion. Other than that, it's my anniversary today, but I've been here for 11 hours now, so I'm gonna go see if I still have a marriage.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Eicher, and thank you for your sacrifice. Mr. Trisdale.
Yeah, I'll be brief. Thanks. I enjoyed the presentation today from KPC, partially because it brought back some memories. When I was a freshman in high school, my dad quit the oil field after 25 years and went back to school. Did 2 years at KPC, then drove to Anchorage, ended up with his degree and his master's degree, and owns a counseling agency now, or runs a counseling agency now. As soon as he was done with his education, my mom went back to KPC in her 50s after almost 30 years at the hospital, and got her a teaching degree and had a completely different second career. And as a kid in school, watching your parents do that, it creates an incredible value for education to begin with, and how important that was. So I enjoyed that. I think my mom had to take 3 math classes before she got to the math class that was actually for the degree, because it just takes a long time, but she just fell in love with KPC, and I appreciated that presentation today. Why do people become teachers? Because they're inspired by a teacher, and I became a teacher because I was inspired by the teachers in the KPBSD when I was growing up. And it's Teacher Appreciation Week, and I was out at Tustamina on Monday for their principal, and I sure hope that the folks at Readout are excited about not only the 119 students coming in, but most importantly, the amazing teachers and staff at Tustamina Elementary that are going to show up at Readout next year and have a huge impact on the community of Soldotna. And so, teaching's a calling, and teachers have always been overworked, and they've always been in on Sundays, and they've always been right on the edge of burning out. I've been there many times in my career, so we appreciate you, teachers. That's all I got tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Tristo. Excellent comments. Ms. Eklund.
Thank you, President Tunseth. Just wanted to report on some amazing innovative youth at the Seward High School. Leo Nip and Noah Flowers won the Caring for the Kenai. They developed a pheromone that will neuter spruce bark beetles. Very appropriate for the Kenai Peninsula. I was at the high school this morning before I headed over this way. I joined the voting registrar who registered me in the Bear Creek voting district 47 years ago. I joined her in my new role as a voting registrar, and we registered. She thought we'd register 3, I thought 5. We registered 10 18-year-old high school students today after their senior meeting. It was wonderful. And then the mayor mentioned earlier about the Bear Creek area. I have several areas on the east side: Sterling, Hope, Cooper Landing, Moose Pass, Lowell Point. And those 5 all had a cohesive group. May not have been called a community council. They might have been called a social club or Hope Bank, but Bear Creek didn't have anything when I got on here, and it was so hard to find out what their needs were. So last night they voted in their bylaws, and they voted in a board of 7 people, and I can't be prouder of the residents of Bear Creek for moving forward on that. And I am proud that we spend the most on education because it's for our kids. Yeah, maybe some of the teachers, but they're teaching our kids. So I don't mind spending. I don't mind paying more taxes. And you may think she's so old, she doesn't pay property tax. Well, I do, because I have a business in my home. So I'm not getting any exemptions. I'd gladly pay more property tax. You got to pay for what you want. And if you want a quality product, you got to pay for it. And one of the things I can be certain of in 2 years, it's not a projection, that I will no longer be on the assembly. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Eklund. Assemblymember Cooper.
I really like being at the end here because I leave these meetings with lots of new nuggets, and I always really appreciate us being so collegial. We have very different opinions. At our last meeting, I actually sent a text to one of my fellow assembly members, and I said, "Look at us agreeing on some things," because you wouldn't typically think that we would, and we were. And so I'm always proud that when we can do that. And when we come down to today, and we talk about education funding, and we talk about being collegial, we also need to look at our borough as a whole. And so I know that our projections are fiscally conservative, and that's why we are in a good position because of that. So thank you to our finance director. I don't always like what she tells me, but she's usually pretty darn accurate, and I appreciate her being conservative on that, but her forecasting is pretty spot on. She also anticipates what my questions are going to be, and so that presentation today was so helpful. She anticipated what we were going to have to be struggling with as we made our decisions, and that information is very valuable, so I agree people should listen to that. And when we are hearing from people how they're struggling, right, financially, and whether we can pay more property taxes or not, we have a very large pool of people that can't even afford to buy a house. So I'm looking at the whole here as we look at what we can do financially. We heard from the hospitals tonight, and you saw the big jump in uncompensated care. That's a trend telling us something. I really appreciated the school board. Our job is to appropriate the money. The school district's job is to determine how that money is spent. And I know it's really hard for them to do that when they have no opportunity to raise their money except for advocating for funding. I really, really appreciated us finding a way in the middle, being aware of how the entire borough is affected by the uncertainty of our economy now. And we do have a responsibility to work with the state. We all have concerns about that and whether there's going to be vetoes, etc. So I would just like everyone to know that we really are working hard to come to solutions. My only disagreement with folks is when they say that our kids don't test well. Our kids perform great. When you look at the Peninsula and how well our students perform, they are top notch. So I will always put out a disagreement on that because I know how well our kids perform and I know how dedicated our educators are to getting them the best education they can get. And with that, I'll say good evening.
Thank you, Ms. Cooper. Mayor Machicki.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Assembly members, for tonight. Good discussions. I texted a counselor, instructor. I don't want to be specific over at SoHi. We lost a young man this week. Very hard. And my daughter came home and said that, well, we'll be specific. Mrs. Smith did an amazing job communicating with kids about how they all matter. And she was really touched by what Mrs. Smith had to say. And I texted her and said, you made an impact on many young people's lives. I mean, my daughter doesn't normally come home and tell me about this amazing thing a teacher does on a regular basis, but when she does, that was clear. So my 4th grade teacher was Mrs. James. Mrs. James changed my life. Mrs. James says 4th grade, so 4th grade you're like 9, going on 50 years, more than 50 years ago. And I think of Mrs. James all the time. I've tried to find her a few times. She's been my passwords on computer. She's not right now, so I'm going to give it a try. She changed my life. Weird, awkward little kid that kind of broke me out of my cage, found some things I was interested in, helped me fall in love with books and math. I still am. So we'll have teachers. We'll do everything we can to support them. You know how I feel about how the structure must work. But I really appreciate that. A couple of quick things. We're at full recycling ops. Things are going well. Still working on a 1, 2, and 5s for plastics. See if there's possibility for that in state. Happy to support that, but we are moving product. CPL redesigned we're about to do another review on it. That will make a difference on a better partnership with reuse and better utilizing that space, better interface for constituents, citizens, if you will. It should be more comfortable to put your trash somewhere. People will continue to ask you about returning recycling bins all over the borough. That's not going to happen. It's wasteful. We have a lot of contaminated product. We'll have it in Seward, Homer, and CPL. If someone wants to kind of privately sponsor the security of a recycling bin, we'll talk about that. But almost every load that came in was contaminated. So if it doesn't have watchful eyes, people do silly things. I try to not put myself in a bubble. Like, I could afford more taxes. I donate to things instead of having it put on my tax bill. But I also know my district, and I also know my borough. So if you feel strongly, consider putting funding to the cap on it for an advisory vote, but be realistic about what it costs. I've seen some posts about what got a lot of letters in, and the cuts were not accurately tied to this. Some of those are not coming back. Some of them are. But I think you'll be surprised on what the Kenai Peninsula Borough votes if you ask them if they want to fund to the cap every year and you explain that true impact financially. It will not pass. It will not come close. So I try to stay out of the bubble. I have my own demographic. I reach out to every demographic all over the borough. Understand that the politics are different in different locations, but we do represent 62,000 people. And my job is to be true to every one of them with what I know and what I can learn from them. And what I learned was some things were cut that were very important to education. And my stuck on 59.3 was adjusted because of that. What I also know is we can't afford a penny more. And we must get back to a curve that's affordable for the long term. There's different reasons why families leave, and the vice president talked about that. She's in touch with those families, those young people that are not settling here because they can't afford housing, they can't afford the taxes. Not that they're high, it's just another burden. So if we want to keep them here, we need to be better partners. Anyway, borough surplus sales on right now. It's on public surplus. Reach out to purchasing if you can't find it. And that's it for me. Thank you, teachers. Teacher Appreciation Week. Thank you for what you do. We know you love what you do, or for goodness sakes, you wouldn't put up with this uncertainty every year. And hopefully we can work to make it more certain for the future. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. So I'll just echo what people have said. Thank you to all our educators and National Teacher Day, and also thank you to all our firefighters. It's also National Firefighter Day, and we got an excellent tour from those guys today at the new CES fire station, so that was awesome. Just a couple of comments from me. Everybody's been talking about their favorite teacher and changing their lives. My dad was a school teacher. That's how, in Pinedale, Wyoming, before we moved up here. And Miss Hagan was my 5th grade teacher, and she was really pretty hard on me, and I was really pretty terrible student. We didn't get along that well, but she ended up having this daughter who was just amazing, named Heidi, and I ended up marrying her, and she quite literally changed my life. So anyways, just wanted to join the bandwagon of people there. I want to take a minute to just thank the mayor and all the staff for all the hard work that they've put in, not only getting across the finish line with negotiations for a 2.5% raise for all the employees across the board, but also all the work that you guys put in on the budget. It's really top-notch work, and it's not, obviously something that's just sort of cranked out like you guys own it. You guys know the budgets inside and out and can speak to them. That certainly helps all of us understand it better, and so I really appreciate that. On a sad note, I wanted to mention, Kenai lost a legend here recently, a guy named Willie Wilson. I'm not sure if any of you know Willie. He's long time, lived in Kenai for, I think, his whole life. Went to high school with my mother. Has just been a stalwart around Kenai, and somebody that's been known in Kenai and around that area and North Kenai for a long time. And so our thoughts and prayers are with Willie's family. Certainly going to miss Willie. He was quite a character, and I know I'm going to miss him. So sad day, but Willie lived a pretty dang good life. I guess lastly, I just want to say, kind of echo what you guys have said. I appreciate working with everybody. I know that I sometimes am pretty passionate about things too, but I want to keep reminding myself. I heard this from a school board member a couple times, from Micah Van Buskirk. We also have a responsibility to project the light that we want to see, right? And to project the goodness that we want to see. And so I want to keep doing that. I don't want to try to view school cuts as a bad thing. I want to look at it as ways that we can turn it into a positive. Use those buildings for other things that are going to create more opportunities, and consolidating schools give kids more opportunities within those schools. And so any chance that we can to try to speak positively about our schools, I think that only helps. So I know I'm passionate sometimes, and if it comes off across that way, like one of you guys said, just slap me in the face and remind me of what I said right now. So Anyways, again, appreciate working with all of you. Appreciate all the staff. And so that's all I have for comments right now. And I'm not going to forget doing the announcement for the next assembly meeting. So our next assembly meeting will be, and by the way, I'm also traveling to my son's graduation. I won't be back until the 19th, sometime around 2, and so I'm likely going to miss the entire budget work session in person. I'll do my best to be there on Zoom on the 18th, and at least until probably 2 in the afternoon on the 19th, and then I should be able to make it for the assembly meeting. But just a heads up, and I'm sure the clerk will send something out as well. Ms. Cooper will be covering for me. So anyways, our next assembly meeting will be May 18th, 2025 at 9 a.m. This is budget work session number 3, right here in the Betty J. Glick Assembly Chambers in the Borough Administration Building. Again, remote participation available through Zoom. On May 19th, 2025, we'll meet at 11 a.m. That's budget work session number 4, right here in the Betty J. Glick Assembly Chambers. And remote participation is available through Zoom. And then also on the 19th will be our regular assembly meeting at 6 p.m. Again, here in the Betty J. Glick Assembly Chambers. Remote participation available through Zoom with a meeting ID of 897-1694-8642. And the passcode is 075938. And with that, we are adjourned.